the ground. A-Chain, they haven't stopped the running game, so go that way, and it's another touchdown.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Second down and 21. Dracovic has all kinds of time to throw. He's got Zay wide open. Catches it at the 18. Now he's looking for blocks. He's going to get him. And Zay Flowers is going to score.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Headed for Tank. He'll give it a go. First man misses. He's got an alley. Right back up the middle. The cut up midfield. There goes Tank Dell. The burst inside the 20, and he's gone. Touchdown, Cougars on the 68-yard punt return.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
C.J. Stroud to Smith and Jigba. Great move. Gets down the sideline. And a burst. Smith and Jigba. Touchdown, Buckeyes.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Lane Kiffin was trying to get a timeout. Instead, it's a first down, and it's a touchdown for Butte.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Selection Sunday coming up in just what? Actually, it's 3 days, including today, Saturday, and Sunday. How many teams in the Big 12 will get in? We know for sure 6, possibly 7. Oklahoma State is really kind of like, looks like they're odd man out. West Virginia looks like they've done just enough to get in. And now a lot of other teams who otherwise won't make the tournament are trying to scratch and claw to get themselves in position. But these 4 are fine in the Big 12 tonight. Kansas and Iowa State, this is in Kansas City, in the semifinals of the Big 12, and then Texas and TCU. TCU beat Kansas State. And if you're Baylor, that might, well, not might, it has to at least help you possibly hang on to a number 2 seed, if not, if you drop to a number 3 seed. In Kansas State, maybe they lose their 3 seed. They were hoping to get up to a 2. Not sure what happens to them. But TCU, that's how dangerous they can be. In fact, I'm not so sure, as good as Texas and as good as and Kansas are, that TCU and Iowa State are the teams that are like, they made runs last year. That they're kind of, they have that ability. They have that firepower. And they've shown it off in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, they are, when they're at full strength, both very good. TCU was very surprising to me, considering no Lampkin and all that drama that went on with that, him not being there, that they were able to handle Kansas State like they were last night. And there it did. Mike Miles is dangerous. Look, guards win in the tournament. Mike Miles is a dangerous player. They can score. They can play a little D. Yeah, I wouldn't want to play TCU here in the next few weeks. So going to be interesting to see against Texas tonight what they do, or this evening, afternoon, whatever. I can't remember which game is which, but yeah, both those games, all 4 teams that are still remaining in the Big 12 tournament are lethal and can beat pretty much anybody.
Yeah, I mean, good wins for TCU. You didn't know how they were going to, get back in the saddle after the dust up with Eddie Lampkin, and that's still a weird situation that needs to play out a little further, I think, because, it was weird the way that popped up, although I think Jamie Dixon handled it pretty well given the circumstances, and obviously they were fine without him, so, good on them. And then, meanwhile, Iowa State, yeah, I think they're a dangerous team as well, had their own issue with a player that, was a part of what they did that, late in the season is all of a sudden no longer a part of it. So they're similar in that way. Got there 2 different ways. But, both trying to knock on the top 10 door as far as, knocking off a couple of top 10 ranked teams with Texas at 7 and Kansas at 3. So I think they've got every bit of ability to do that. Not sure if they'll pull it off, but I think it makes for a really great, foursome of teams to try and, whittle this thing on down in the nation's best conference as far as basketball goes.
Well, and then there's other tournaments going on, of course. Some are just in the quarterfinal round. Texas A&M and the SEC tonight at 6 will play Arkansas. I mentioned the Big 12 with KU, Iowa State, Texas, and TCU. The one thing I thought is that maybe with what happened a week ago with Grill, it was a week ago, like today or Thursday a week ago, that he was dismissed from the team. They go into Waco and they smoke Baylor. They surely didn't seem like there was any problems, obviously, against Baylor yesterday. They looked free and easy and happy. And TCU with Lampkin, didn't look like there was any pressure on them or any kind of like playing up tight or anybody not wanting to play for Jamie Dixon as they beat up Kansas State in that game. So Baylor went into the Big 12 in the conference tournament week as a number 2 seed, according to Joe Lunardi. So did Texas. And really the other data and analyst type people when they try to do their brackets. We will have Rocco Miller. He's from the Field of 68 bracket analyst. He'll join us today in the 5 o'clock hour. That's the same bracket with Terrence, or the same website and podcast with Jeff Goodman, Rob Douster, and also Terrence Oglesby. He'll join us today to give us a little bit of a look at that. We'll have Max Olson and Grayson Grunhafer today in the 3 o'clock hour. Now, also today, a little bit after 4, Paul Catalina is going to unveil the link for you to be a part of what we do when it comes to the NCAA tournament. We'll show you the link, put it up in the chat room. We'll have it up on the website. We'll put it up on Twitter. All of what we can do, we'll do that today a little bit after 4 o'clock.
Yeah, it'll be up in the chat room, so you can click on it and do that. The winner will get a Baylor national championship plaque. We'll see what else maybe we can scrounge up as well, but it's a really cool contest from our friends at Play Action Pools. And I'll just say it right now. You only get one shot at your bracket. Like, once you're submitted, you're submitted. Like, it's one of those. So take your time and do it. It's not something you can go back and edit later. So once you hit submit on this thing, it is locked in. So make sure that you're careful with it.
So one like David Smoak, 1. There's no David Smoak 3, 5, and 8. Okay. I kind of like it that way. I kind of like it that way myself.
Look, you can do 75 different ones. And then are you really going to enjoy yourself, or are you just carpet bombing?
I agree. Paxton asked about this about a month ago. Paxton will have that link up today and kind of explain it a little bit. I registered my name in it. I had the link sent to me, and we'll put that up today a little bit after 4 o'clock if we possibly can. Now, also, last night on, the Dennis Dodd story with CBS Sports, we didn't even touch on it much yesterday, and one of the reasons was because what I saw there, the additions to the story that has been similar news for the last, I guess, few days, were quotes from Jerome Tang and quotes from K-State, and also Bill Self, the KU coach, on the possibility of Arizona being a part of the conference, the state of Arizona or the University of Arizona, or perhaps even you want to include Arizona State. So last night, I went to bed. I woke up this morning, and I had a text from Craig, the back and forth between Craig, Paul, and me, and this was Mark Harlan. And I didn't know off the top of my head. That was kind of, first of all, it was very early. Give me a break. All right, so I'm thinking, okay, what? And so then I click on Mark Harlan, and that's the athletic director at Utah, towards the article from Dennis Dodd. Then a writer or a columnist or a sports editor or somebody that used to write for Greg Hansen, maybe he still does in Arizona, the only true and reliable source yet to surface on the Pac-12's future, Utah athletic director Mark Harlan, needs just 4 words to disarm the Arizona to Big 12 narrative. And there's Jason Scheer. Mark Harlan is not the AD of Arizona.
No, but it is refreshing to hear something from someone in the Pac-12 about all this
We've
noise.
heard from Washington State. Is that me? Yeah, it is.
But at least, yes, but at least directly addressing this part of it, not everything like Washington State, everybody who said is kind of like, well, we anticipate this, we anticipate that. But as far as a lot of the noise that's going, this is the first kind of direct response to all of that. That's been, like he said, oh, please, or whatever it was. But that's the first.
Give me a break.
Yeah, give me a break. That's the first time any one of them has said anything like that.
Okay.
The other tone was just answering questions the best that they could, but not, kind of saying, well, it could be this or that, or, whatever. This was, oh, give me a break, meaning that, he doesn't foresee any of that happening.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it appears to say. So, that was of interest. I don't know why it took so long to have somebody go on the record. And I know the answer would be, well, because they wanted to handle it differently or whatever. And I understand that. But, you see how quickly that just simmered everything on down. So you needed to wait months. You needed to wait for Fever Pitch to just say simply a 4-letter tweet. Like, nobody could have done that in the meantime to calm this on down. So all these rumors that are flying around that are all apparently bupkis and there's nothing to them. And, that's something that I do need to get explained from some of the Pac-12 people, because for all this, there's nothing to it. There seems to be a lot to it. And I don't mean the reports necessarily. If you want to discard Dennis Dodd and his reporting, you feel like there's some scheme behind it. I've seen that mentioned out there. That's fine. But, on the one hand, I see a Stuart Mandel tweet that's updating and saying, this is what Max Olson and I were saying a week ago. It's like the Big 12 renewed contact with the Four Corner Schools. Well, I thought the Four Corner Schools weren't talking to the Big 12. Stuff like that's not adding up in the Pac-12 perception of this whole story. So they're not talking, but apparently they're talking. But I thought that they weren't talking. And then they're not talking, and it gets very confusing because it's from both sides.
Yeah, and I would say this, and we've had Dennis Dodd on the show. I've known Dennis for quite some time. He's been in the business for 25 years, and I know that because of where he might be as far as his stories, that people are saying, well, you're just being fed this by the Big 12, whatever. One of the reasons why this show in the fall of 2021, the summer of 2021, Texas OU SEC took off in even more ways than we already were doing, was because I was fortunate to have an amazing couple of sources. Now, I still had to check them, but we were ahead of the curve. Not bragging, but we were, and it was well ahead of the curve. And so I don't know who other sources are. I'm not going to sit there and discount or discredit Dennis Dodd. I haven't talked to him since his article came out. He can fend for himself. But it was interesting that another national columnist that used to not think that there was any chance the Pac-12 would have any interest at all, or some in the Pac-12 would have any interest in the Big 12, or that they would not even be, the Big 12 is going to get 10 or 12 million a year. It's like people have picked sides. They have. Now, yeah. I'll say this as well. The Four Corners part is something that might be a little bit of a lazy narrative for anybody, you or any of us when we say it, because I'm not so sure if anyone was to ever leave the Pac-12, that the teams would include all four of the Four Corner schools, counting Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado. Might be one, might be three, might be two. I don't think it's all four of them. I don't think Utah is in that group. I just don't get that feeling that they would be one that's a part of that at this particular time and may never be. So that might be what you saw last night from Mark Harlan.
I, for one, think it's disgraceful that the Big 12 is out there openly talking about schools. Meanwhile, what's the update on Kliavkoff's visit to SMU and also their talk about San Diego State and any others of the four schools that were reportedly in the mix last week? What's the difference?
There is no difference.
What is the difference? And yet, it's treated like completely separate things depending on who you ask. So I understand that, Brett Yormark's a bit aggressive and people aren't used to that. But now you've got, this side trying to paint him as a villain or something. And it's he's just doing his job. And it's gotten to this really weird point where now we're, trying to cite, people at agencies that are doing their jobs, too, to paint the client that they're working for in the best possible light to get the best possible outcome. And we're trying to call these people out by name who are very much behind the scenes. And it's just gotten strange. And meanwhile, while you're doing that and getting weird about it, you're bagging on Brett Yormark for openly talking about Gonzaga, which is the only school that he's mentioned by name, and just meanwhile painting this broad brush of we're going to look at all and every possibility, which is what's wrong with saying that, by the way. Not a damn thing. They've been open about that for an entire year. But George Kliavkoff goes and actually visits SMU, and then we have an article from, it was either Canzano or Wilner. I get them confused, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. It's just I forget who writes what at what time, who I think it was last week had the Pac-12 in it for four schools and deciding between four, although it might just be two, and getting very in-depth. What is the damn difference? What is the difference there? I don't know why there's this line where my side does it all the right way, and then this side does it all the bad way, and we're going to call them a bunch of names and do all that. I mean, it goes both ways. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. If you want to talk PR campaigns, I feel like there's one over the last 24 to 48 hours that's coming from out west more so than where, that's normally been pointed at the Big 12 this entire time, because you have seen a lot of the changing of the narrative just in the last 24, 48 hours. And that's just simply the Utah AD coming out and saying a 4-word tweet. But even the articles have started to kind of change the tone a little bit. And I think, all along I've said I think the Pac-12 survives, signs a short TV deal, and we all line this thing up. So I think that's still where we're headed. If that's where we land, then okay, that's where I expected it to go. But I don't think this whole dismissing of I don't believe every rumor, and there are some that I see that are pro Big 12 or anti Big 12, and I'm like, I don't know about, that seems like wanting to get social media attention or something like that. But to say that there's been nothing to this at all, and that it's just merely like a PR firm, out there, then why did it take this long for somebody to simply say something publicly? Because that seems like it really settled the waters and would have been a good solution, I don't know, maybe a couple months ago, and we wouldn't have gotten to this point already.
All right, so, Paul, in the history of the Big 12, they were rated by the Big 10, Nebraska, and the Pac-12. Did the Pac-12 take somebody from the Big 12?
Yeah, it took Colorado.
That was in 2010 and 11, right?
Yeah.
So is it different a decade later? There was also discussion, of course, when A&M and Missouri left, that, well, wait a minute, Texas and Oklahoma could be or are being courted, or at least connection to the Pac-12.
Yeah.
What was the difference between that and what we see now? I would rather at least somebody be
Social
outward
media.
about, there you go.
Yeah.
I would rather someone be out there saying, we all know. Mac Rhodes has said things on this show, and he clarified it the last couple of weeks because somebody or people went with what he had to say, and he had to clarify it. But it's interesting when it's almost like, well, you can't do that. Well, what the hell have you done 3 or 4 times? Actually, the Pac-12 raided the Big 12. They stole Colorado. Now, I don't care. Good for them in Colorado. Good for Colorado. And if anyone is raided, it means that you have left your doors open. And the Big 12, more than any conference in America, has been raided more than anybody.
Well, and
in fact, 3 separate times, because they were always sleeping on the job or they weren't paying freaking attention.
And if not for the Longhorn Network existing at the time, and Texas, and it was at the very beginning of it, so Texas wasn't going to give it up then, and the Pac-12 networks starting, Texas might be in the Pac-12 right now as we speak. And the Big 12 probably would not exist at that point, because then all that would have been left would have been, the biggest schools would have been like Tech and Oklahoma State, and they would have found their way probably to somewhere else too, because, again, the ship would have been almost completely submerged.
And by the way, if you're the Pac-12, do what you can do.
I was gonna say, man, I didn't want to turn this into a rant. I was just simply pointing out, there's a double standard that's going on, and I would just hope that the people who are creating that double standard would look in the mirror for a second and realize they're doing the exact same thing they're accusing others of doing, but then pretending that it's okay because it's their side. And I know that we do that with basically everything in this world, like, oh, it's okay for me and the things that I like, but not okay for you and the things that you like, because the things that you like are bad, or whatever hashtag you want to flip on that. But yeah, it's just kind of strange to me how this has turned into such a finger-pointing thing, and it's just, at the end of the day, business. But when we started delving into, the conspiracy about, the PR stuff, and, that got to a point where I'm like, come on, people. What are we doing here? Everybody's doing their job. Everybody's doing what they can to survive. No one's trying to be the villain, even though some want to paint Brett Yormark that way, or maybe you want to paint George Kliavkoff that way, or whatever. But, I mean, the Big 12's, they've made it crystal clear. And, here's my biggest question with the whole the disruption thing and all of that. So we've been hearing how, the Big 12's trying to disrupt the apple cart, and they're trying to get the Arizonas and all of them all nervous Nellies and, putting it out there through Dennis Dodd or whatever you want to do. That's some of the Twitter talk, right? I guess my question with all that is so the Pac-12's aligned, right? Based on the reports. They don't want to go anywhere. They all want to stay together, right? Everybody wants to be cozy and have the same educational models and do all of that, correct? That's all. The Pac-12 wants to stay together.
Well, they are together, so I guess
Yes.
the answer to that right now would be yes.
Yes. So you mean to tell me that these 10 school presidents and that these athletic directors and that all the other people involved are going to be swayed by a random person on Twitter saying that Arizona's unhappy? That's going to be the thing that, as the Jenga piece that we pull, is random person on Twitter going, I heard the Four Corner schools are leaving. That's going to like disrupt the presidents and all of them. Like, so that's something that I need more clarification on. This disinformation or this smearing or this whatever, what was it going to accomplish? Because if you're telling me that the goal of it was to accomplish like totally cratering the Pac-12, then that flies in the face of against a really bunch of smart people, like at least 30 of them, not to mention TV partners and other people behind the scenes that we don't even consider, that they're all going to be duped as one collective big brain group by a couple people on Twitter floating completely empty rumors that have no substance to them. I need that explained, how that's the mission of the Big 12 and how they thought that was going to be the way to get, the Four Corner schools or whatever rumor you want to come up with, because that seems like a pretty flimsy idea. And I would think that the school presidents and the chancellors would probably be smart enough to say, yeah, that guy's full of it. That's just Twitter. We're not even going to acknowledge it. And I guess maybe that's what Utah's AD did last night, was finally be the guy to say, no, this is bupkis and this is all bull. But until now, yeah, it's been complete silence and just little headlines here and there. So, you digest it as best you can. But, I don't buy into that they're going to be upended by some Twitter folks. I don't know how that seems like it was some master plan that was going to be pulled off. I
sent Bob Thompson a text. It was, I guess, this morning. I said, what are your thoughts? And, hey, Bob has been more active, and he's been on this show many times, and there's been a couple of times where he's checked people at the door, and then you'll have fans to Bob Thompson, who was in the room with these hundreds of millions of dollars of negotiations, saying that, you're just past your prime. You really aren't involved. We don't know. Bob might be involved with helping somebody from the Pac-12, might be involved with helping somebody as a consultant. He actually said to us that somebody did reach out to him to want to be a consultant. I would too. But I said, what about the fans? That's not just, I'm not talking just to you, but who feel like their tweets or their opinion will get back to the people who are in the administration offices, either in the Big 12 or the Pac-12 or anywhere else. He goes, it's totally bizarre. Like Mark Harlan, I don't think is watching other Twitter feeds. Somebody obviously alerted him to the article. He responded, that's fine. And then others responded to that. Cindy Machado, I want to address this with Cindy. Huge Pac-12 fan. Every day here, loyal as hell, watching what we do and what we cover and how we go about it. Anything new in the Pac-12, anything new about San Diego State, and I love it. We appreciate you. But, then why did the Big 12 contact the Four Corner schools? Do you know that? How do you know that? We don't know that. There may have been reports, but you have to be careful. There could have been a third party. Somebody may have done that, and someone from those I'll just say from 2 or 3 schools may have also sent out a flare, hey, will you at least have someone call us? So we don't know who contacted who, and really most anyone else that is not a part of those administrations, they don't know that either.
Well, and this is where it gets confusing because, yes, Cindy, they have. Because if you go by Stuart Mandel's report, the Big 12 Conference renewed contact with the Four Corner schools. That's directly in a tweet from like 5 hours ago. The Big 12 renewed contact with the Four Corner schools from the report a week ago with Max Olson. And it goes into why the Pac-12 is probably not going to do anything and why I assume they're not going to do anything. But that's what I'm talking about. So there's nothing to it, but they've renewed contact. But there's nothing to it.
But there's nothing to it, yeah.
So, like, that's where, this is where I've just kind of gotten to the point of, like, it's overwhelming. I had to, like, step away from all the Twitter stuff a lot, and especially, like, the back and forth, because it does get a little bit ugly and just not into that. But, like, that's just the part of me of, like, you say with an absolute, like, there's nothing to this, and yet there seems to be a whole hell of a lot to it. Like, there's a hell of a lot of smoke for not being any fire. Now, is that enough to push like an absolute to push a move? No, and I still don't think that it is. I still think the same thing that I thought a few weeks ago, but to act as though there's never a chance and everybody's delusional and what morons or whatever other name you want to come up with, I don't know. Like, there's at least talks going on apparently, so there's nothing to it, but is it likely? No. That's a different thing, though, than saying there's absolutely nothing to it. So, I mean, it's a wild story that is obviously getting to a point where it's reached the boiling point and something's, given, I think, maybe with the Utah statement that there is now a little bit of a release and everybody can kind of go back to their corners if you were, choosing one and settle in for, what's likely to be a lot less dramatic than what you maybe thought it was going to be initially. But, this has been a crazy realignment saga, and it's got a lot of people, obviously, rooting and obviously, up in arms in some ways and feeling a little bit of pressure, I'm sure, in certain cases as well. But I think when all is said and done, that Utah statement does ease your fears a bit if you're a Pac-12 fan. But at the same time, some of that reporting and some of that does indicate that, no, there wasn't just no big nothing burger to this the entire time. And that's why I think that, you can point out a certain story and say, like, that's PR or that's this or that's that. There's no doubt there's some level of that going on.
What's the difference between Dennis Dodd and some of his slow, what would you call it, the drip, the IV drip on stories he's writing than anyone else who covers schools or the Pac-12 doing the same thing?
I guess it just depends on whose perspective you prefer.
Who you prefer. By the way, this was funny. I wanted to close it out with this. Baylor Cloyer on Sikkim 365. Serious question. What will we talk about when we don't have realignment to talk about anymore? One, I think we'll be talking about it, Paul, for the next forever, right?
It's going to last forever.
And I said that's when I retire because we'll have no content.
Well, I mean, there's actually much better stuff we can talk about in season. In the off season, though, you get these things, especially with the tumultuous times of college football as they are. But it's not going to go away, and people really like it. As far as whether the thing is, people like to wildly speculate. That's why. The NBA and NFL off seasons get nearly as much coverage as the regular seasons because, LeBron James could go here and then he could bring this guy and this guy, or this guy could get traded. Like
NBA talk off the court is so much hotter most of the time than on the court.
Exactly.
It absolutely is.
So,
it absolutely is.
My favorite time of the baseball season is the trade deadline. I mean, it's been kind of neutered by the fact that so many more teams get in the playoffs now. So
turn it off.
I will. I don't know why he keeps doing that. I've never had that happen.
That's what I usually have.
So
never had that
this
happen.
is. I love the transfer portal in college football. I can't wait to see
that's the thing though. To the question, Paul, of what will we talk about? I mean, that's the same thing people asked when transfer portal was all the rage, and that's all that people were talking about. Same thing with NIL. There's always something in the offseason, especially. There's always something. But spring ball's about to start going around the horn as far as all the programs and what they've got going on. There's more recruiting that never. I mean, people talk about recruiting 24/7, 365. I mean, I feel like how does that not get old? How does following the saga of a 17 and 18-year-old for 2.5 years not get old after a while? You know what I mean? So everybody's got their niche, and for a lot of people, expansion is it. And the thing about it is it's not to what I was trying to say. This is not black and white. There is very much a gray area, and so. If it was all just wild and there was nothing to it, that would be one thing. But there's very clearly something to it, as we've seen the last 2 summers, as we're seeing right now, and as you start to all of a sudden who's perking up, it's the ACC schools all of a sudden, and we know that there is this 5-year or so window coming up, give or take, that's going to be probably as normal as college football is going to be, as long as we know it the rest of our lives. Because at the end of that road,
define normal, which we can't do now because we have to take a break.
As normal as it is right now, and then here in about 5 years or so, when we go through another round of TV deals and all the speculation about that's also an entertaining little niche. We'll see where we are then, but it's very possible that the sport shifts dramatically once again. So this is just part of the ongoing changes to college athletics.
We'll ask Max Olson his thoughts. Max Olson, theathletic.com, with us today, and then Grayson Grundhafer, again, just after 5. Rocco Miller, one of Paul's relatives. Any guy named Rocco is a relative.
Not necessarily.
The Field of 68 bracketed analyst.
Miller, it's not really
Yeah, it may be a fake name if his name's Rocco. All right, Paul and Craig would have fined me if my phone had gone off at all during the show, which it has maybe 20 times, and I'm light about $100. This is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace. Got a neat story the other day. Somebody said, hey, I've been hearing you talk about that, and he had been struggling with his knee. and had an MRI and then had surgery and then it didn't work very well, that doesn't mean that the surgery wasn't right. Then something else flared up. And he was going to go get an MRI. And sure enough, it was going to be like $1,250. Average MRI is $1,100. So he said, idealmri.com. It's very simple. Go online, contact them. You can call them as well to get an MRI. And it's $497. It's never more than that, and sometimes less than that. And they will, yes, help you with filing the insurance to maybe get a little bit of that even taken off. And they have a state-of-the-art technology MRI machine. I've been in it for my shoulder, for my lower back, and for my abdomen. If I can do it, and I'm telling you, there are times MRIs spook me because I'm claustrophobic, I've never had an issue. They make you feel so relaxed the way the techs and specialists work, and then after it's done, you're going to get a call. The images are put up in a someone said transfer portal, in a portal for your doctor and for you to see. IdealMRI.com.
Just as teams are celebrating on the courts, your mountaintop experience begins during the Jeep Celebration event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get a 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo with total values up to $5,500 on second and third row options, or a 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport with up to $5,000 in total values. And if we don't have exactly what you want, we can help you build the new custom Jeep of your dreams. It's the Jeep Celebration event at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. If you haven't been there in quite some time, you're missing out on the improvements for our members. New flooring in the weight room and locker rooms, new paint and mirrors added in the weight room and group exercise room, with more new machines arriving over the next few months. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines on spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alex Bach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. There's sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, and kids club. The amenities are great. 16 tennis courts plus an 1,100-seat stadium court, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Visit our website, wacotennis.com, or visit Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Max Olson, when Brett Yormark had his media session in Kansas City, Max Olson, we put up a lot of his tweets from the quotes and much more. Max joins us now on 365 Sports, athletic.com. So, Max, man, it seems like that there's a lot of finger-pointing going on with members of the media, columnists, writers, beat reporters of, like, who is what. And what is your sense right now of what you think the Big 12 is? Mac's been quoted. Yormark's been quoted. Jamie Pollard has been quoted. Gene Taylor's been quoted. What are your thoughts about the Big 12, and are they like vultures right now when it comes to the Pac-12?
Yeah, I think we're pretty status quo from last week, honestly, in terms of, I think on the Big 12 side, you're just kind of sitting back and waiting for some clarity on the Pac-12 situation here. I think what Mac has said on your show, that they're ready, is about the best way you can put it still at this point. And talking with people, in Kansas City here at the Big 12 tournament, I think what we reported last Friday, I think is still the case. I think there's still very, a lot of curiosity about what's going to happen next in the Pac-12. I think we're going to get some clarity on that really within the next 2 weeks, in terms of what that media rights offer looks like. And I think that there's still, the contact continues. I think there's still some optimism here that, they have a chance to pull the Four Corner schools, or at least a few of them. And so I think that stuff's got to play out here a little bit. And honestly, I think there's really not much more that Brett Yormark or anyone in the Big 12 needs to say. I think everyone is just right now we need to just really get to the bottom of, what is the offer and who are the partners for the Pac-12, and kind of how do their members respond to that?
Yeah, Max, it seems like there's just a lot of noise. You've kind of simplified it there. Like, what's the offer? What then? B is, how do people feel about that? And C is, if they're mad about it, then the Big 12 sitting here and they know what they can do if that's the case. But until A and B happen, C is just theoretical.
Yeah, and there's not even anything to negotiate here. Like, I think if the Big 12 is adding Pac-12 members, based on conversations I've had, I think they would come in as, I think Fox would support it and they'd be full share members. So I don't think there's like a money dynamic to this. Certainly with the Pac-12 deal coming up, like, there's not a complicated exit here, obviously, as we're seeing from USC and UCLA leaving. Like, there's not much to like haggle over here in terms of, do you want to come over to the Big 12? It's ultimately, and especially if the money is similar, bottom line, it's do those Pac-12 schools, do they believe in Brett Yormark and the vision he has for the future here, short term and long term, and do they want to be in the Big 12? I mean, this is not about twisting arms and trying to trick people into making that move. I think they've got to believe that in what the conference is doing, and that the future seems brighter in terms of what they're trying to achieve here over the rest of the decade.
Max, just from your perspective, you talked to Bob Bowlesby or heard him plenty of different times. I mean, you covered the college football scene in the Big 12 for a while. Brett Yormark's obviously a bit slicker, talks a bit faster, is a different part. of the country coming from and just a different background. But what's kind of, obviously he does things his own way. It rubs some people wrong, and for others, it's exactly what the doctor ordered. But just what's kind of been your perception in comparison to other commissioners you've spoken to or talked with over the years, and kind of what you've seen from him on the first year on the job?
Yeah, it's really striking. I feel like in a lot of ways, Bob Bowlesby and Brett Yormark are kind of polar opposites. And just in terms of the way they go about the job, and that's absolutely not a diss on Bob Bowlesby, because I think he achieved a lot over his decade in charge, and it doesn't mean Bob did things the wrong way, but certainly this goes back to the Big 12 board and what were they looking for in their next commissioner. And I remember last spring I did a survey of our athletic subscribers who are Big 12 fans, and kind of asked them what is their perception of Bob Bowlesby, and I think that it was clear there's kind of at least perception, right? Like there's a view that they wish he was more aggressive, and I think that they got what they're looking for. If that was like your view of things, that the Big 12 was more reactive and not proactive enough, certainly this is what Brett Yormark was hired to do, and I think the Big 12 board did view things that way in terms of going in an alternative direction, and not someone who has a long history as an AD or something like that. They got what they asked for with Brett Yormark, and I think it's been pretty impressive, all the things that he's done or gotten started here over the course of 7 months or so. And just watching him at these conference tournaments, the guy is he loves to put on events, and he's ultra detailed and ultra determined to do things his way, and it's been, but yeah, the contrast has been really kind of fascinating to watch that continue to play out.
And he was there in Kansas City, and you were obviously quoting a lot of what he said. What he said was not much different than anything else he has said recently. It just was validating that he hasn't changed his mind. Yeah, I don't think anyone needs to ask him what is he looking for in an expansion candidate. We've all heard the same lines from July. I do think I think he did say pretty straight up. He never name dropped the Pac-12 over the course of those 18 minutes he was on the podium or whatever, but he did at least make it clear. He was asked directly about Gonzaga and made it clear that I think you can read between the lines what he's saying, that the Pac-12 opportunity certainly is the priority right now and figuring that out. And Gonzaga and maybe some of these other more basketball focused ambitions, I think, are pretty secondary to that at the moment. I've heard that the talks with Gonzaga have all gone well, but I think that's a little bit backburnered at the moment as they focus on whether they can make this deal happen. Max Olson, theathletic.com with us, 365 Sports.
So, Max, what was it like to wander into a basketball tournament this week?
Oh, yeah. Definitely, not any basketball coaches or players recognize me. That's for sure. No relationships going on there. It's been a long time. I haven't been to a Big 12 basketball tournament since I was a college reporter covering Nebraska in the Big 12. So that's how long it's been. It was cool though. I think I hadn't been at T-Mobile Center in KC in a long time, and it's a great venue. They do a great job there. I am not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if the Big 12 does stay there long term past the current deal, because I think that's just a great venue, and it's really interesting next year when you add 4 new fan bases, and they're also going to move the women's tournament over to the T-Mobile Center next year as well. So that I think as an event, you saw them start to roll out some of the things that they wanted to, that Yormark and the conference wanted to do this year. I think next year with 14 fan bases and a year of experience for them in terms of putting this event on, I think it's going to be pretty cool to see next year for sure.
Next year is going to be a wild year, man. That whole 14-team setup, the finale of OU Texas, the 4 new guys. It's just going to be a very unique year for the Big 12, no doubt about it. Max, you're circling back for just a moment. What were your thoughts when you saw the Utah AD speak out publicly? Just 4 words, but it's that was all that needed to be said for certain people. It was all right, period, on the end of the sentence. I don't know how often that happens. I can't really recall. I know Twitter wasn't necessarily a huge part of realignment stories from years and years ago, but did that perk your attention or get your attention, I guess, at all?
Yeah, I don't think we have enough time to get into the whole Twitter piece of Big 12 versus Pac-12 right. And the way this is all played out here.
No, really, let's do it.
Really,
let's
since
do it.
last summer, That's it's just been nuts. Like, and I understand. Like, I think the thing you got to keep in mind, I was thinking about this morning, and that's not to say like Utah to the Big 12 is dead. Like, I don't really know what to make of that. I understand the angst on the Pac-12 side about some of Dennis's reporting and just like kind of this the continued stories of like the big bad wolf coming to the Pac-12. Part of this is going on because of the silence on the Pac-12 side. George decided not to have a press conference in Las Vegas, which, like, I don't know that you can complain about like this cascaded negativity when you're not really doing anything publicly to combat it. But like, I think that like part of what makes this stuff a little bit nuttier is just, look, we all know Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC, went on behind the scenes for a long time. And we know USC and UCLA, one day it just popped up, right? Like, obviously that was going on behind the scenes for a period of time. And, when the Big 12 was expanding, yeah, that was out there for a few weeks, but it was kind of, there wasn't any tug of war there. You knew where they wanted to be. And I just think this one's been different because it has played out like a lot more publicly for a longer period of time. And there's just kind of more pressure and more like, when there's not a lot of like clarity, then there's going to be kind of misinformation or rumors and stuff like that kind of fills that vacuum. And so, like, I just think the way that this has gone, like, I'm sure Brett Yormark would love it if all this was kind of really happening quietly below the surface, behind the scenes, and nobody was paying attention to it. But that's just not how this thing has gone. And I'm sure the next 2 weeks, there's probably going to be a lot more BS.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's from Daily. There was a couple of comments. Like, there was one small column today about how Endeavor was feeding certain people. And then Bob Thompson, former Fox Sports CEO, says, listen, I work for that company. It's part of the company he worked for. He goes, that's not their MO. Stop. Yeah. It's gotten to the point where
I mean, I can say I've not dealt with Endeavor at all. That's not, that's the one that person John Canzano is writing about is not somebody I know or deal with. And I think we've tried to report this thing pretty down the middle all along. And I think it's interesting. I understand it, though. Like, it's emotionally convenient to be like, the Pac-12 is in this situation because there's some bad guy out there who's trying to stir up trouble. But obviously, like, I think that, if this ends up happening, like, I certainly understand that Pac-12 folks would probably paint Brett Yormark and Endeavor, all them, as the bad guys that made this happen. But I think you have to really take a more critical look at how did the Pac-12 even get in this situation. And I certainly don't think that, stories that appear on CBS Sports or The Athletic or anything like that are going to sway whether these things happen or not.
Well, and we also brought this up before we came on with you, and we appreciate your time, is that the Pac-12 stole Colorado from the Big 12. So we've been there before. It's not like other conferences haven't looked at other conferences. It's just right now, I guess it's the Pac-12 who's on the clock.
Yeah, no, look, I think it's, when there's reporting that like the Pac-12 is going to crumble or their demise is coming and all that stuff, like, I absolutely understand why that like elicits like a really strong emotional reaction from people. And like clearly like the battle lines have been drawn on this stuff for quite a while. And, I certainly understand like the passion for it. And we appreciate it in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate that people care about our coverage of it, but I think it's maybe that kind of, I don't know. I don't know how the next few weeks will play out, but I can certainly understand why like people get so worked up about it and fearful and want to point fingers and all that.
Thank you, Max. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Max Olson got a little basketball in his blood this week in Kansas City with us today on 365 Sports, and Grayson will join us in the next segment.
Yeah, I enjoyed that because, thought pivot and ask him about like some random, like, hey, what spring game are you, we have plenty of time to get in all that, but it was good to get, from somebody who has been right there in the mud of all the reporting and actual conversations going on to get his perspective on it. And you can take it for what it's worth, but know Max for a while now and take him at his word. And I think they're just doing their job and everybody else is too. And yeah, there's a lot of other noise that's going on, kind of as we were discussing in that first segment. But just everybody's a little on edge, particularly out west, because there's a feeling of being threatened, like he was kind of saying. And, meanwhile, we're just all very impatient people in general. Yeah. We want the end of this story right now, and it's not that that quick, but I do think it's important, Paul, before you get started. The next couple of weeks comment, I did take note of that. That was notable.
Well, and look, again, they could get to the end of this thing, and all it's going to take is one school to be really angry that decides that they don't want to sign it, and then we're at a new part of the conversation. And maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens when there's an actual deal on the table. I do think too, because it's where there's so much noise out there in the way that the media works now. And what I will say for Max is that he's a true agendaless reporter. He doesn't have any
it's true media.
Yeah, I mean, what you're supposed to do. Max very much understands that nothing he does in his reporting is going to, shake the world up. He's not. And there are these, I think, reporters who either want to think they're Lois Lane, and exposing Luthor Corp for their big thing all the time.
Brett Yormark as Lex Luthor.
Yeah,
wow, that works.
One of those things, And there's others that just look, I'm here to ask what's going on and write down what that is.
Right.
That's what your job
dude.
is. That's what most people's job is. But because of the way that media works in regard, I mean, there's the dude, Jim Acosta at the White House, who I think thought that he was he was fighting this good fight. And then all of a sudden it's I feel like he got some chicks because of it, and it was whoa, hey, I gotta keep doing this. It's working for me. And then you have people who genuinely don't care. They just want the facts out there.
You'd be surprised how many people are just trying to go about their lives, and this is just part of their job, and that's all they're doing is just trying to do their job, and they don't care about the fallout of the Pac-12 and the death of, they really don't. They just need to write the article and get their check and keep moving on, and that's what they enjoy doing. And, there is a lot of just assumptions of, everybody's in on this secret, and it's just normal people just talking about normal stuff, really.
You're right. It is. And that's we wake up every day hoping to cover whatever is news. We create some of it. We create some of the coverage of. We have our sources too. One of the things that I'm it really almost offends the hell out of me when someone wants to suggest that there's a narrative about anything against anybody in journalism, and I know a lot of people now in this business, journalists, clicks and views, talk show hosts, whatever. When someone tries to suggest any reporting by anybody is being fed by somebody. Everyone has sources, but I don't know who the Karen is. I saw some of that. I know who her name is. I know what her job is. She has never texted me or spoken to me, although I had fun with it earlier today on the chat room. Every morning I wake up to, this is what we're talking about today, and right before the show I make sure I get the narrative correct on 365 Sports. It doesn't work.
We don't have to justify ourselves, by the way, either.
But you want a quick journalism lesson? You want to know how to be really successful, although it's really hard. And the only agenda you have is getting the actual fact.
Yes.
Asking a question and not caring what happens after that, as long as you get the fact, because it's an old cliche for a reason. The truth shall set you free. So sometimes there's bad things, sometimes there's good things. But as long as you know what the fact is, then you're going to be better off.
If you don't do it that way, eventually you're going to come back and it's going to hit you right in the face because you forgot that you may have lied about something to get some sort of reaction.
Mm-hmm.
All right, when we come back, we're not done. Grayson Grunhafer, Sikkim365.com, recruiting coordinator, but also going to get his thoughts and opinion on what's happening with Baylor men's basketball, on where are they as they now wait Sunday, where are they going, who they're going to play, what is their seed, 2 or 3, and all that other stuff in between. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on. They're the people that I've counted on over the last year on a couple of different occasions, and they're the people that I will count on again in the future, whether it's going to get a repair or perhaps the next time that I'm going to, buy a new vehicle. And I don't want to have to do that anytime soon. Had to do that somewhat recently. And not trying to do that, in the next year or two. But if I need to, or if that's just how it ends up, then I know the first people that I will be calling are the people that you can count on over at Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac right now. They have dozens of Sierra trucks on the lot with the Texas size selection back at Richard Carr. There's over 150 vehicles on the lot and ready to drive home today. They can talk with you over at the dealership about the special financing and special pricing, especially on those 2023 GMC Sierra trucks. If you're looking at SUVs, they can talk to you about that pricing as well. But for example, qualified buyers can get lease payments on a 2023 Buick Envision with $5,000 down cash or trade at $269 per month, or save thousands on a purchase. Again, just talk to the good folks over at Richard Carr. They will hook you up and give you the best deal possible. But 2023 Buick Envisions if you want to go the SUV route, 2023 GMC Sierra SLT 1500s if you want to go to the truck route. And those aren't the only options either. And new cars aren't the only options either. Pre-owned cars and trucks are in stock, many of them under $20,000. Affordable, thoroughly inspected, ready to finance, ready to drive for almost any credit rating. Again, they'll talk to you about the financing and all of that, but they have plenty of quality vehicles, pre-owned, ready to drive home today. And maybe you're not buying a car or a truck or an SUV. You're just simply trying to get your vehicle hooked up and on the road and healthy and confident in what you're driving, getting repairs, getting it all cleaned up. Well, contact their award-winning service department, which is standing by to keep you on the road, and they will let you know about the service specialist. Set an appointment for quick and reliable repair. Just going over to the website, richardcarr.com. In business for 23 years in Central Texas, run by proud Central Texans. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial.
This is the soundtrack of life at Baylor.
There's a spark in your heart and a fire that's in your eyes.
If you're ready to take a big step toward a bright future, tap the banner below to check out the music video for a glimpse of life at Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of health care while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of health care has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
There are 20 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Thanks for Grayson Grunhafer and his patience being late. That's on all of us, and he's here with us, 365 Sports, sick on 365.com. Grayson, I know we always are asking about recruiting and all of that, and that's a continual constant. Every day you can post a lot of different things, and you do. But let's discuss Baylor men's basketball. What we saw in that game with Iowa State, which we'd seen twice before, but who are they, in your opinion, besides the obvious of a team that doesn't play defense and got hammered on the boards?
I think that's probably at the root one of the questions that I think a lot of Baylor fans probably have at this very moment. And I think that it's also okay to put things in perspective a little bit. So I think that this matchup against Iowa State, not great. People have talked about that a lot. Baylor does not match up well with them. That physicality, their ability to rebound, their ability to keep offensive players in front of them while also contesting jump shots at a very effective rate gives Baylor problems. And we saw that for the 3rd time this year. And, frankly, I know the final score was 6 points, but that game felt like a game that was far worse than 6 points, especially in the second half, which is another troubling thing, is that Baylor has had these second halves where they just simply don't show up or don't perform to the level that they really need to. So I think in general, the kind of team that we're talking about here is a team that is very effective, I think, in space. They're effective with their individual matchups, and they're effective on the offensive side, specifically with those matchups. Now, the issues for Baylor at this very moment are, like you said, defensively not very good, and physicality, rebounding-wise, they have issues as well at times. And so I think in general, the kind of team this is probably a team that when they get to the NCAA tournament, when we see their draw, they're really going to need things to shake out extremely well, I think, for them to be effective in the kind of matchups they might see, meaning they're not going to want to face really physical teams that play really effective and sound defense. And they're also not going to want to face teams that can rebound the ball at a very, very high level. So if they get that draw, I still think they can make a run in the tournament. If they don't, you might see them lose in the second round.
Richard Carr Motors, our Baylor Bear hotline with Grayson Grunhafer. People you can count on.
Grayson, do you think this is a team that can make a deep run in the tournament, or are we looking at, that would be too lofty an expectation?
I think, again, it just, to me, it comes down to the matchups and the teams that they play. I really believe that there are certain matchups that favor Baylor, very well. Like if you want to get into a scoring match with Baylor, you want to face a really good offensive team that's not good on defense, I think that actually favors Baylor. Now, could they get outscored? Sure. We've seen that at times. The TCU game, the Kansas State game, the Marquette game are a few that come to mind where Baylor just hemorrhaged points and got outscored. And so that can happen as well. But in general, I think if they play a team that is kind of rooted on their guards and is a team that is really trying to push the pace and just score a bunch of points, I think that favors Baylor. Now, again, if they face a bad matchup in the second round, because I do think they'll get out of the first round. I think Baylor's proven that this year. They haven't lost to teams that are really bad. All the teams that they've lost to have been, quad one losses. And so, in my eyes, I think they'll get past that. But then the second round, you never know what kind of team you might face and what kind of day they might have. And I think in general, we've just learned that this team's margin for error is much slimmer than I think we originally anticipated coming into the year. And also that, despite all the talent that they have, all the guys that can score the basketball, at the heart, this team is just not a great team right now, and they're not playing great basketball. And as we know, when it comes to March, you got to have a very well-rounded team that hits their peak by the time the tournament starts. And so basically we're going to have to see a very different Baylor team going forward than we have in the last, few weeks of the season.
Yeah, and they also, I saw some responses during the game about Iowa State was playing physical. It's a Big 12. They let them play. I mean, it's not like the Big East of back in the day, but they let them play. And you almost wish that you had a dog, like someone who's going to knock somebody on their ass. And I know Loners does that, and sometimes because he's awkward and maybe out of position, and he did it in that game, got a technical foul, and he deserved it. But there doesn't seem to be somebody that's just going to knock you down and make you pay. Not dirty, but make you know they're there.
Absolutely, Smokey. And honestly, the craziest part is, that guy that you're kind of talking about also usually, at least on Baylor's teams, happens to be an elite defender as well. So, like, looking at last year's team, you had Jeremy Sohan, very good defender, very long, very active, and we saw what he did in the round of 32 game where he just physically imposed his will. He was getting guys kicked out of the game like Brady Manick, and just was a dog, right? Just a guy that just, frankly, was going to do whatever it could for them to win. They also last year had James Akinjo, who I don't think many people, are going to remember a ton of in Baylor history. But I'll tell you right now, that's the kind of guy that, also Baylor needs. Like that mindset physically that I don't care how small I am, I'm going to run around, I'm going to get in your face, I'm going to make you know that I'm on this court. And, Mark Vidal and Davion Mitchell, like Baylor has had a lot of guys like that. And I think the guy closest to that on this team actually this season has been Jalen Bridges, but it just hasn't been to the level of those other guys. And, Bridges is a very good player and he's shown great flashes, but consistently, he's not an elite defender. He's a very good defender, but not elite like some of those other guys. And usually when there's an elite defender on your team who has that kind of toughness, physicality, mentality, that they all kind of, go together. And we've seen that in the past from Baylor, but they don't really have that guy this year.
Yeah, Grayson, do you think that might be Jonathan Tchamwa next year when he is feeling like himself completely again?
That is really one of the tougher things to watch, I think, Paul, is that, I know he's dealing with stuff physically. He's far from 100%. And anyone that can't see that is, kind of fooling themselves. But he's not there yet. And the sad part about it is I think it's taken away some of that physicality. And I also think, when you're not in the game as much as you normally are, that can sometimes zap your energy. And we just haven't really seen, that from John, and they need that from him. And in this last game, for instance, 0 rebounds for him, really didn't give Iowa State any problems at all. And the problem is they really needed him in a game like that when Flo was playing, not great basketball, and Loner, he's tough to put out on the court right now. They really need something from John as this season, almost comes to an end. They're going to need him to be a lot better and a lot more active and potentially provide what you're talking about. But unfortunately, we haven't really seen that up to this point. So to think that's going to change, at the start of the tournament, it's kind of hard to, convince myself to say that.
Yeah, it's almost as if he had such a great start when he came back, hit those threes, and it was such an excitement. They won the game big that, people forgot that there was going to be some sort of a settling down type of thing where he kind of went through some of the growing pains of not playing for as long as he did and maybe just not being physically anywhere near, even though he's back. All right, one recruiting thing, and I know you got a lot. There's obviously every day something, Sikkim365.com in the premium section. Tell us a little bit about New Braunfels Canyon quarterback Deuce Adams.
Yeah, so Deuce Adams is going to visit next Monday, and this is actually a really exciting time for me, I would say, because Deuce is going to be competing in the Under Armour camp on Sunday. He's going to be competing against a bunch of different quarterbacks in the area, including Haas Haney, the quarterback out of Aledo, who's also being recruited heavily by Baylor. So I'm going to get to see him out there competing against the best quarterbacks in the state. Literally every really good quarterback will be there. So he'll get to kind of show where he ranks in that mix. And then the very next day, he's going to be visiting Baylor and get an opportunity to hang out with Sean Bell and Rhett Holcomb and Dave Aranda. And I'm excited. I think this is a visit for him that's going to be really important. I know that he already is locked in an official visit to Boston College, and I think he might lock one up to Louisville as well. But I think right now Baylor sits in a really good position for a quarterback that I view as a very good one. And if you watch Deuce's film, he has a lot of swagger, a lot of moxie to go along with, being very talented. His arm talent's very good. The accuracy he showed this year was exceptional. And so I'm excited to see it on display in a camp setting, and then to see him go to Baylor and see, if those relationships continue to click, and if he, decides to make a decision, which I actually think is possible. I don't know if it's the most likely outcome since he has other official visits scheduled, but I do think there's something about the Baylor program that resonates with him, and I know he's got a great relationship with the staff. And so just trying to build on that is I think where Deuce Adams is currently at, but he's a big priority for Baylor right now as they continue to search for their 2024 quarterback.
All right. Thank you, Grayson. Good stuff. We appreciate your time. Mainly basketball today as we hit March Madness Selection Sunday coming up in just a couple of days. All right. When we come back, we will continue with more. We have a kind of a break here. We have one super chat. Let's get to that first. And then Paul's going to come back and show you the link to be a part of our NCAA tournament. And the super chat came from Boom to the Sooner. $5 super chat. Do you guys think Utah, Colorado, Arizona State objectively add value to the Big 12, or is it pointless but just sounds nice?
Let's come back with that.
Yeah, all right, let's do that.
I get into some depth on that one. So
do a little research first.
You got to call Karen?
No.
I'll call Karen. Listen, I know several Karens. I don't know which one exactly they want me to call.
You want to come back with it, Craig?
Yeah, man. I'd rather than trying to fit it in 30 seconds. Yeah, I think we need to take a break.
Let's break here. We'll come back, and then also Paul's going to unveil the link that Paxton can now sleep at night. And I mean that in a fun-loving way, because he's been wanting to know about the link for us to have our own 365 Sports NCAA type of tournament.
I hope he wins, actually, and gets a Baylor plaque.
Yes, he would. If you're not a Baylor fan and you win that, we'll find a way to get you something different. Maybe a meeting with Chip and Joanna. I don't know.
Like we have that kind of stroke.
Yeah, we have that kind of stroke. Okay.
I had lunch with his best friend like 3 weeks ago. I still haven't met him. So.
Well, then maybe we could work that out.
That would probably be like the big get, huh?
Oh,
it would be like Chip and Joe here in studio.
It'd be great if they ever allowed him to come in the studio with us, because I've requested that quite a bit, but it's not going to keep me up at night. When we come back, the super chat, our answers, and you on the chat too. Love to hear from you. This is 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street in Waco. A hidden gem is right behind the bank. If you look it up on Google, I sometimes I forget to mention this. Sometimes Google Maps are not updated, and so they used to be across the street from where they are. So if you got on Google Maps and you drove to the place where they used to be, you would see that there's not a liquor store there, that there's not anything there. It's just an open, empty lot now. But if you look right across the street, their beautiful, still fairly new location, they've been there for a couple years, is right there across the street. They've got the best selection of local Texas craft whiskey, the best selection of craft beers, and it is spring, and there's some good springtime beers out right now. And the best selection of just about everything that you can ask for, and they're unbelievable when it comes to customer service. Their drive-through window is like a NASCAR pit crew. It is unbelievable what they pull off at Riverbend Liquor and Wine, the quality, the service, everything that they have there. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, available on DoorDash, and check out their Instagram.
Cars priced right both day and night. At Richard Car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. At Richard Car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. At Richard Car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. At Richard Car in Waco, Texas.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneeredboys.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Before we get back to the Super Chat, boom from the Sooner. WVU Mountaineer Lair with Kenny has said he's back. He'd been not feeling very well, he's had some health issues. Back with us in the chat room, back with us with 365 Sports, and everybody welcoming WVU Mountaineer Lair back, and also Joey Foster back. I saw him earlier, but I haven't seen him in the chat lately. So appreciate both of you. Glad both of you are doing very well. All right, so back to the Super Chat. The Super Chat from Boom to the Sooner, $5. Thank you, sir. Do you think Utah, Colorado, Arizona, Arizona State, which would be referred to as the 4 corner schools, although I don't think those are the ones who are all coming, if they do, objectively add value to the Big 12, or is it pointless but just sounds nice?
Oh, I think it definitely adds value. Now, you'd hope that those schools, especially look, Utah is the one that's been successful recently, and they've won the Pac-12 the last 2 years. And Colorado, Arizona, Arizona State need to all get better at football for it to be better. Now, basketball-wise, Arizona, nothing to sneeze at there. They're fantastic classically. But If you're telling me that, you're going to add Deion Sanders to a conference, and it's about matchups, it's about TV, well, he's great TV no matter what. If you're going to put BYU and Utah as now a conference game, that adds a tremendous amount of value. Texas Tech versus Arizona State, if both those teams were good, that's a new rivalry you could have. Same with Arizona. There are tons of things that give it value. And remember, I'll keep going back to this quote because I saw it in an article last week, and it really has stuck with me. Burke Magnus from ESPN said, yes, footprints are nice, but what they're trying to do and what conference expansion is about is creating the best television matchups. So ESPN, Fox, they're television networks. So think of them just like NBC or ABC or CBS trying to figure out what their best Thursday night lineup is. The best one that NBC ever had was Seinfeld and Friends, Cheers and Frasier. When that was all going on and they're kind of rolling through, that's what they want to do for football. They want their Seinfeld into Friends into ER. That's what they want. That they need that because that's what people will keep watching. So if you create better matchups, there's tremendous value in that.
I thought it was all about academics. Just kidding. That question is most simply answered by, it creates value. Otherwise, it wouldn't be talked about as long as it's been talked about. So there's something to the fact that it's drawn out as far as it has, and that the Big 12 has stayed on the ready to scoop folks up if they're interested and if they're available. And right now they're not available. And that's the big question is what kind of availability might there be? And if there's none, then nothing's going to happen and everybody will go their separate ways and make the most of what they've got. But, I definitely think they add value. Otherwise, we would have just stomped those rumors out a long time ago. Brett Yormark could have moved on and saved everybody a lot of headlines and headaches and just said, no, we're cool where we are and we're, maybe at Gonzaga or something in basketball, but outside of that, we're good. But clearly they're keeping that lure out there in the water for a reason and hoping that they may get a bite. And I think they'll be fine if they don't. I think that they're perfectly fine where they are, but they're now being proactive, which is rubbing some people the wrong way because that's not the Big 12's role typically. But that is now what they are going to do, given that, I don't know, maybe they realized after the fourth time the conference nearly died of hey, we better probably change how we do things or we're going to be doing this over and over and over again for, the rest of our future until we don't have a future, which was very close to happening just a couple summers ago. So they responded with a big swing, as big as they could, and that's kind of their new attitude, and it's not going to be for everybody, but it's going to be for the benefit of the Big 12. So, I do think they add value. Now, to what extent? Is everybody going to be making $10 more million a piece? I don't think it's anything along those lines. I think that's where the problem lies is that, we don't know what the Pac-12 is discussing behind the scenes. That was another part of my talk earlier is if everybody of these athletic directors and these commissioners and the Pac-12 side of things keep hearing there's nothing going on, there's absolutely nothing to any of this and all that, and I know that, there clearly is because even the reporters that are on the other side, so to speak, are saying the exact same thing as the other. There are conversations, at least there's some discussion, whether it's legitimate or not or whatever is, up to the eye of the beholder. But wouldn't you think that up until last night before Utah's AD spoke, that if the Pac-12 folks were sitting there meeting, as they do, every few weeks or so, and they were being told, no sweat, no worries, this TV deal is going to be fine, everybody's going to be happy, we're all going to be good, here's what we're doing in expansion, if they all had this set, cemented plan the way that it's acted by, certain parties, that there's nothing to fret and nothing to worry about whatsoever, then don't you think that would have been made clear by now? By everyone's actions?
There was the statement. Everything's fine. We're okay. We're all in it
guess
together.
If that's what I forgot that statement even existed. That was so. I guess maybe that was the statement was everything was fine. But I just feel like if there's nothing to it, then all the smoke could clear. But apparently there are conversations. So make that of what you will. But
it's the same thing with the Utah AD, Mark Harlan, saying responding to what he said, and then you have somebody that covers the Pac-12 turn around, but you don't basically say, but you don't speak for everybody else, including in this case Arizona.
Right.
And I don't, maybe Kleofkoff not having the press conference. There are thoughts that maybe what are you going to say? Why say anything? And if you don't have anything to say, so just don't say anything at all. You're right.
I'm simply pointing out that there are things that are said with very matter-of-factly, like, oh, no, that's totally fine. And then I just question, okay, well, then why not that or why not that? I know you can run yourself in circles with that. Anyways, they add some value. Otherwise, there wouldn't be discussions. But I don't know if it's enough to, like, sway, you know.
What was one of the things that Brett Yormark said about where he wanted to look?
That third time zone or fourth time zone. Fourth time zone, yeah.
Arizona and Arizona State are sometimes in the fourth time zone, right?
Yeah, because that's one of the cool things that Arizona does is they don't change.
So Utah, Colorado, Mountain Time, correct?
Yeah.
So the fourth time zone was something that Brett Yormark brought up a long time ago.
But they would be, even if the schools aren't in the fourth time zone, the television viewing would be in the fourth time zone because if you add just one of the Arizona schools, you're going to be able to put more games on in the fourth time zone in that late window. So getting in the fourth time zone doesn't necessarily mean that the school has to 365 days a year occupy the Pacific time zone. But if you can put things on television in the Pacific time zone, then they're in the time zone.
If you read or you follow different things being said, Brigham Young doesn't want Utah in the conference or Utah doesn't want it. And then we had Greg Wrubell, who was on the show, and he says that, no, there's none of that. He didn't say none of that, but he was like, if that happens, they've done that before. So boom to the Sooner. The only thing I could think of is, do you add any financial advantage? You probably stabilize yourself even more. There is that pro rata, whatever that's called, that if, in fact, the Big 12, when they built that new deal, if they add anybody, to me, there's none of those schools that I look at negatively. And I'm not one of those that wants to look at AAU or R1 or who has the highest grade point average. I'm looking at it as far as rivalries, regionality, and also how do you sit there and also protect either, let's say, for example, Brigham Young in the Mountain Time Zone, although Texas Tech might as well be Hawaii as far west as they are in many, many ways. So there we are. And some others had different parts of that, but I thought that one of the things for sure is that they're looking for that fourth time zone. Other than that, I don't know. And if none of them come, fine. The Big 12's fine, and that means also the Pac-12 is fine too. All right, Paul, the link. Here we go.
Let's see. Hold on. I got to go back and copy it to make sure I got it right from the email. But, yes, this is from Play Action Pools. Our good friend Christian McCollum, who does a great job covering Notre Dame. He was on the show just a couple weeks ago, as a matter of fact. Sent this to me, and here I'm putting it up in the chat room right now. Here is the link. Play Action Pools bracket, so you can go there and sign up. There's information to put in, but once you've done that, you're in the bracket contest, and we have one. So it's pretty easy to do, pretty standard bracket contest. Also put it up on Sikkim365.com. We'll put it up on Twitter as well, on my account and the Sikkim account right now. So you can go to those, click on register, get involved. Right now we have for as long as you're a Baylor fan or you just want it, you might be just a general sports media memorabilia collector like we happen to be here behind us. We have a Baylor National Championship plaque that's going to go to the winner of that. Really cool looking thing.
Unless you're not a Baylor fan.
And
otherwise,
I'll talk to Christian.
Round trip to Waco to meet Chip and Joanna.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so that, and make sure once Sunday goes, you start doing it then.
What we'll do here, and I don't mind doing this, and I'll do this myself. If, in fact, the winner is a fan of another team besides Baylor, or you have the plaque, I'll figure it out. We'll send you a gift card to maybe one of your favorite restaurant where you live. For example, if you live in Scottsdale, we'll do that. Or if you live in Tuscaloosa,
wherever you live outside of Waco, we'll
outside.
do that. Yeah.
I'll figure it out. We'll send you a gift card for what, Paul? $100, something like that. You think that's good? Yeah, we'll do that. All right, that's what we'll do. All right. So there we are. The link is there. Don't forget now, the Selection Sunday, that's in 2 days. Get that filled up. I think they also give you the options if they want to contact you to remind you and so much more. I will say off the top, my bracket will suck. I'm not good at this. Even when I think I'm good at it, I'm not good at it. So, but good luck to everybody in doing that. And we'll have the round by round updates of who's doing what, and we'll even put it up on a board, a graphic or whatever that Garrett can put together. All right? There we go. All right, when we come back, 4:30 is the time. We have an NCAA bracket analyst coming on at 5:20. We might have somebody else between now and then as well that does that. I'm about to check in a text here as we hit the break, but much more to come, including I have not gone to the text line. And let me look. Paxton's the last one. No, I sent Paxton a note last night about UT and their win. Very workmanlike win. But I tell you what, against Oklahoma State, there was a time in the second half that was unwatchable. Did you guys watch any of the Texas-Oklahoma State game in the second half?
No,
It
that
was
one
like
I gave, yeah.
nobody, like Oklahoma State started the second half, and give Texas defense credit. It was like 0 for 10, 11, 12 to start the half, and yet they didn't ever really fell further behind than they were around halftime. That was difficult, and again, that also might have been the defensive effort on both sides. This is 365 Sports. PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, used to be, and how can you do that? 1 out of every 3 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. Most of what you hear are ED, sex drive issues in the bedroom. Also, though, that includes your energy. That could be a part of that, too. Are you kind of just not the same? Are you lethargic? You just, something's missing. And then also, your sleep habits are messed up. That can be your testosterone level dropping. 1 out of every 3 men, that happens to you. You could have one of those symptoms. You could have all of them. Dr. Kent Petty, PettyClinicLowT.com. Email, phone number, top left-hand corner of the website. Text him, call him. They'll get in touch with you. They'll set up an appointment for you to get your blood work. That's your blood level work. He will get the results. He will get in touch with you. And if your testosterone level is too low, and he'll look at the other things too, he will put you in a program to increase your testosterone levels. That works. Low T, Dr. Kent Petty, PettyClinicLowT.com.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jeweler, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
We'll update some of the afternoon finals from the conferences around the country, and also again tonight the 2 semifinals, Kansas and Iowa State, then Texas and TCU in the semifinals tonight. The winners play tomorrow in Kansas City. So here is the field of 68. Rocco Miller is going to join us at 5:20, but this is where they are as of, I'd say maybe around 1 o'clock this afternoon. This is where they were, and I thought, I didn't know if this was going to look good on the show, but it looks very nice. You see the number 1 seeds as of now: Alabama, Houston, Kansas, Purdue. The number 2 seeds, Arizona, Texas, UCLA, I've seen them as high as a 1, and then Baylor, and I've seen them where they might, if Marquette wins, even the possibility, because if you look at how they run these algorithms over and over and over again, that Baylor could fall to a 3, Marquette could move up to a 2, Tennessee maybe involved as possibly moving up to the number 2 line. So there we are. I don't know much about Vermont, but they probably are a team that goes up and down the court and throws up a bunch of threes.
Yeah, I think that, look, if this first weekend holds for Baylor, that's 3 good potential matchups for them. So I watched Mississippi State play Alabama today, and, granted, Alabama is, in contention for the number 1 overall seed, but, man, they got absolutely throttled.
Alabama is really good, and they, A&M beat them last Saturday.
But I do think that they'd have trouble stopping Baylor's guards. Again, Baylor's guards would have to do that. Florida Atlantic, I don't think is going to be a team that, while they've had a good year, would really put much of a fight. Although, and this is in what I now consider a bygone era of Baylor basketball. I sat and watched both Yale and Georgia State knock Baylor out when they had no business doing it. So stranger things have happened, but I do think that would be a really good matchup for them. Plus, we do have breaking NFL news when we're done with this.
Yeah, we're going to get into that in just 1 second. And somebody just brought that up on the chat. Craig, anything on the seeding? We'll have Rocco on. He'll join us at 5:20 to discuss what has to happen for Baylor to keep the number 2 seed overall, which is hard to imagine after losing their last 2 games to Iowa State at home and also in the tournament, but they did a lot. They have a lot of big-time quality wins, quad 1 wins, and no bad losses, quad 3 and or 4. Now, I was going to tell you a little NFL news about the Cowboys have opened up $30 million into the cap, but we can work on that later. That's really almost to give them a chance to breathe. Here is Ian Rappaport. Carolina, sources saying that Carolina is going to trade up to the number 1 overall pick with Chicago, and in exchange for the compensation, including multiple first-rounders.
Yeah, so here's the compensation.
All right.
Pick number 9, pick number 61, which is in the second round, towards the end of the second round, and a first-round pick in 24, a second-round pick in 25, and wide receiver DJ Moore, which is huge because the Bears, they traded for Chase Claypool last year from the Steelers. He played a little, we'll see what happens there. That was pick number 32 that the Steelers currently have, which is, I think, going to maybe, if the Steelers for once in their life wanted to move up, they could definitely do that, was 17 and 32. But DJ Moore gives them a legit number 1 wide receiver for Justin Fields and helps change that offense. And then really you start looking at what the Bears could do at 9. There's not a position. Even if they wanted to draft Jordan Addison at 9, it would still make sense for them to do that. So there's nothing that they don't need outside of probably quarterback, because now you're building behind Justin Fields clearly.
Yeah, that's pretty huge. I mean, pretty huge swing by Carolina to jump up there and grab that pick. I mean, it makes sense, though. At the same time, I saw somebody point out, and I don't recall now because it's gone by me, but losing DJ Moore means that Laviska Shenault is your number 1 wide receiver in Carolina. So
Colorado.
Yeah, but I mean that's interesting. DJ Moore, a really good player, and so that's a great get for Justin Fields and for that Bears offense. But yeah, I mean that compensation's pretty crazy. They're loading up in Chicago, and I mean it's a huge move by Carolina to go ahead and decide like this how they want to start off their new era. And I'd be curious to know what Matt Rule thinks. Like not even like jaded or anything, but just like, hey, what do you think about that? But yeah, I mean Carolina needs a lot, so that's very interesting. And I guess the question becomes, all right, who'd they jump up to get? Is it C.J. Stroud? Is it Bryce Young? Is it someone else? Who will be the guy that they have their eye on? And whoever it is, I mean, they're going to get him because they have the number 1 pick now.
All right, I want to talk about DJ Moore for a second. All right, I did not realize I knew he was productive. This year, his numbers of catches were down, but my God, the turnstile at quarterback.
I mean, Baker Mayfield's throwing to him like halfway through the year, so
Yeah, he had 93 catches, 87 catches in the last 5 years. He's just been a production machine. Yardage was down this year, and he played in all 17 games. Again, the quarterback situation has been a mess. I mean, he has been, just very, very good. Better than I even thought when it comes to overall his per average catches, yards. Not a lot of touchdowns, but again, he got more last year than ever before with just 7.
Yeah. So now by the way, the Panthers, really now the focus, I'm pretty happy for the beat writers that cover the Panthers. They now can stop, they were sitting at 9 thinking about, 15 guys that the Panthers could wind up with. Now they only have to think about 3. It's Bryce Young, maybe 4. But Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, and possibly Anthony Richardson, if they just did this all because they started doing cocaine. Because Anthony Richardson will be a first-round pick, but I don't think he's going to be the number 1 overall pick, especially when you have the Heisman Trophy winner, a guy who's been to the playoff, and then Will Levis, who's more of your classic NFL pocket passer, all up there. But, yeah, so those 3 guys are really what you have to focus on. If it were me just basing it on what I've seen from Frank Reich over his career and the people he's coached and the ones he's been most successful with, one of whom was Phillip Rivers in San Diego, by the way, and Los Angeles, I guess, at the end. I don't know if he was ever coaching in Los Angeles, but with the Chargers, I would say C.J. Stroud, to me, right now is the odds-on pick because I think he's much more of the Frank Reich-type quarterback.
Yeah, man, it's entirely it's entirely possible. I mean, that seems like, good enough reasoning that it's kind of what fits the bill. But, yeah, I think that, it wouldn't be a shock if that's the route they decide to go. I mean, Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud's been the main conversation. I know there's other names that you mentioned like Will Levis or Anthony Richardson have been up there as well and are probably going to the first round. But, I think it's a Stroud-Young battle. And to see C.J. Stroud go number 1 overall, I don't think that would be some huge shocker. I mean, he's been rumored in that vicinity, some form or fashion for going on, months and months now as the draft build-up's been going on. So, yeah, I could definitely see that.
What's the difference between Justin Fields and C.J. Stroud?
I think height and maybe – and athleticism on
running ability.
Running ability for Justin Fields.
Now,
Yeah.
I was blown away by how many yards. I told you that a couple of days ago. I really was blown away by how many yards rushing he had. Of course, he's running for his life quite a bit too.
I also don't think I think the knock on C.J. Stroud is that he's not a runner, but I don't think he's Drew Bledsoe back there or anything where he's statuesque. I just don't think that when you have the wide receivers and running backs that Ohio State had, if C.J. Stroud has to run, it means everything has broken down. Because otherwise, when you had, especially 2 years ago, when it's Jackson Smith-Njigba and Chris Olave and
Garrett Wilson,
does C.J. Stroud need to run?
Yeah.
I mean, when would he need to run?
Yeah, he still threw 41 touchdowns compared to 44. His overall yardage was down. He didn't throw as much either, but completed 66% compared to 72%. And, yeah, with those receivers at Ohio State. And they had an effective running game, although this year the running backs got dinged up a little bit. Well, Carolina picks up the number 1 overall pick. They get it. They flop. They get number 9. Chicago gets the 9th pick. They get the 61st pick in this year's draft, a first-round 24 and a second-round 2025, and also DJ Moore. If DJ Moore was in the draft this year, where would he go?
Well, he'd be in the top 15.
Okay.
I mean, he's fantastic. He's a great he's a really good receiver, and he's managed it with who's the best quarterback that he's ever played with. Cam Newton at the end. I mean,
that's one thing with Matt Rule. We're all fans of his and everything, but I started hearing the ownership, and it's yeah, but there were the quarterback was never settled while he was there. It was always some deal they didn't get along with Cam Newton, or he did, and but no, that didn't work out, and by the end, then you're scraping the barrel with Baker Mayfield. Not to be so disrespectful to Baker,
Darnold.
but. What did they not try? And I know some of that's injuries and stuff too, but they couldn't find a quarterback that they could settle in on, and now they'll be able to resolve that piece, because I don't know what else they'll have around them, because they won't be able to add nearly as much as they once were able to, but they might have their franchise quarterback finally, which is great news for Frank Reich.
Let's see. Plenty of Big 12 quarterbacks. Geno Smith, Brock Purdy, Jalen Hurts right now in the NFL. And you're right. They have Kyler Murray. Yeah, absolutely. Oklahoma's where he was, and a lot of times it's still hard to imagine A&M had all the ones they had in their bank. They were in their bank.
Here's the thing. Kyle Allen is an NFL quarterback too, and has been for a long time. Now, he's not a starter, but look, there's only 32 starting jobs. There's only 32 backup jobs. There's only 64, and I know there's some third stringers depending on what teams do. But as far as active on game day, there's only definitely 64 dudes every Sunday that are quarterbacks in the NFL. And A&M had 2 of them. One of them was a Heisman Trophy winner on their roster, and somehow pissed them off within 24 hours of each other. Unreal.
Yeah, I think we also left out some guy named Mahomes in Kansas City as far as Big 12 quarterbacks go, unless you mentioned his name too. I don't think you did, though. He would. I think you would include him as far as a Big 12 quarterback.
You know what, Patrick
I think he gets mentioned before Geno Smith or Kyler Murray or whoever. With all due respect, that's where you start, is with that young man, and then you can go from there. But
and that's the all-time list, perhaps too.
Yeah, all those quarterbacks that are running those gimmicky offenses that everybody made fun of a few years back. That I guess they didn't so much make fun of the offense, they make fun of the defenses, but, maybe the great offenses had a little something to do with some of the defenses, at least to some extent. Not that they were, iron sharp prior to that, but that also, when you're playing Patrick Mahomes, and next week you're playing, a Kyler Murray, and the next week you're that adds up, and I think you're seeing that some in the SEC now with their great quarterbacks. And the change in offenses there as well, and just really all across the country. But, the Big 12 quarterbacks have gone from gimmicky offenses or not playing any defenses to sure as hell taking up sixth of the league now, probably, the starting quarterbacks, and being pretty dadgum impactful as well.
Well, and look, I think that one of the things that it used to be that the NFL had what their offense was, and they would pick players or bend players to do it, and then it's funny how it started. Once colleges and high schools kind of scrapped a lot of those ideas, then it made it harder for the NFL to go well, man, we can't really teach this guy, we're drafting a quarterback. We got to pay him, for the next 5 years, we got to pay this guy $17 million a year. Well, we can't wait for him for 4 years to get it anymore. And so they got to go. And so then they start adapting. I think one of the things, if you look, and I hope the Bears do this for Justin Fields, and it looks like they're going to try, but what the Ravens have done with Lamar Jackson, and hopefully for their fans' sake, they continue to do that. But what the Eagles did with Jalen Hurts was, instead of saying, okay, we're going to get Jalen Hurts to run the offense that Carson Wentz was running, we're going to have Jalen Hurts do that. They said, no, we're going to get playmakers all over the place, but we're going to build the main core of the offense around what Jalen Hurts is good at, maybe even great at, as opposed to saying, okay, here's what we want you to do. We want you to spend all your time trying to be someone you're not. And then if that works out, we're going to look at geniuses. Or we could adapt and mold our offense around your outstanding work ethic, athleticism, and everything else, and put playmakers around you. And look what happened with
But they
Eagles.
also built a great defense, too.
Yeah, they did.
Great's not the right. By the way, backup quarterbacks from the Big 12. Will Greer.
Colts.
Mason Rudolph. Colt McCoy. It's not just the starters. They're feeding into the system with what they've done as well with some of the backup quarterbacks. So, yeah, let's see. Cousins Corner brought up Will Greer. Barry Crawford brought up Mason Rudolph. Kim Coulter brought up Colt McCoy. Craig, you did also when you just mentioned
but I
his
think
name.
if you look at Mahomes, Hurts, Geno Smith this year, I mean, those three in particular had really solid years. Brock Purdy, too, there towards the end. I mean, it remains to be seen on, the long term. Like a whole season and stacking those up. And shoot, Hurts has got to keep doing it too. Geno's got to, and now he's got the contract. He can't just not stop, here. He's got to keep going. And shoot, man, he's like towards the end of his career already. I mean, this is probably like the last contract, like huge contract he'll ever sign. Well, he's already been in the league 10 years.
It makes up for everything else he didn't make.
He's just now getting to the point of being like the full being or person that he can be as far as a quarterback in the NFL goes. But that's starting 10 years into the whole thing. So, I mean, he's got to continue to go. Kyler needs to get better. I mean, he's super talented, but we all know that there's something not wired right. And, Kingsbury's out of there now. So, whatever off the field may be prohibiting him from reaching his full potential, I hope that he realizes that before it's too late, because God knows he's physically, just super talented. But, yeah, I mean, and then, you've got your guys like your Baker Mayfields that kind of float in and out, or your Colt McCoys. But, I mean, Colt's been a long-time number 2 guy now and had some, dabble with number 1 on occasion when guys have gotten hurt. But with Mahomes and with and Jalen Hurts and, then guys like Kyler and guys like Geno Smith and guys like Brock Purdy, I mean, yeah, it's as solid as it's probably ever been in the history of the conference as far as impactful quarterbacks go, for sure.
All right, couple of scores to pass your way. I mentioned Tennessee. Well, forget about that. They were beaten by Missouri 79-71. Alabama destroyed Mississippi State by 23. Tonight, Arkansas, A&M, Vanderbilt, and Kentucky. That's in the SEC quarterfinals. Pac-12 tonight, Oregon and UCLA, 8 o'clock tip Central in Vegas. Arizona and Arizona State in the other semifinal. Big Ten has 2 finals from today. Ohio State beat Michigan State by 10. Purdue 70. Rutgers 65. There's a couple of other games tonight. Penn State, Northwestern, Maryland, and Indiana. Of course, both the semifinals, Big 12 tonight. KU, Iowa State at 6, 8:30, Texas and TCU. The Big East semifinals tonight, UConn and Marquette, Creighton and Xavier. The ACC semifinals, Duke, Miami, Clemson, and Virginia. Last night, Virginia beat North Carolina, and it looks like the preseason number 1 ranked team will not play another game the rest of this year. Could be the first time. It's happened like 3 times before. I saw a stat where the mid-60s UCLA, right about the time they started that amazing run, I was like, wait a minute, they missed the turn. Back then there were like 16 or 32 teams. So it wasn't like it is now when there are 68 teams. Also, Houston in the American Athletic Conference, 60-46, they're playing up in Fort Worth, beat East Carolina. More games tonight. In fact, Temple, Cincinnati's going on. It might be over, that game going on this afternoon. So those are the college basketball games from today, and there are other of the mid-major conferences too. Do mid-major basketball conferences get as offended being called mid-majors compared to the group of five, Power Five debate. And I understand if you don't feel like there should be Power Five and group of five, it's just lingo. But autonomy five, that's a normal. I mean, that was actually what it's called.
Autonomy 5 is a correct definition of what they have autonomy. They have some level of extra decision making that the others don't. And that's like, the Power 5 Mike Oresco complaint yesterday. Look, he's doing his job. I don't blame him whatsoever for doing his job and for promoting his product and for playing some defense and defending in playing that defense, defending his conference and other conferences that are not Power 5. Because he's right. There is, lesser of a difference now than there probably ever was between 3, 4, and 5, the Big 12, Pac-12, and ACC, or whatever order that's no order intended there. But between them and the Big 10 and SEC, there is a large gap that's growing larger, and that leads to all of the speculation. People can roll their eyes at realignment or whatever, but if you don't see what's coming down the tracks, then don't be surprised when the train hits you. Or don't act surprised when the train hits you. I mean, it's very clear there's a widening gap, and he's right that it's not so much between 5 and 6 as it is between 2 and 3. But at the same time, you've lost nearly your entire conference in the last few years. You're propping up Houston basketball. Houston's leaving. So how are you propping them up? I get that they're taking care of business in the AAC, but how do you cite a team that's not even going to be in your conference moving forward as a strength?
Or Cincinnati.
Or Cincinnati going to the playoff. I get that they did that, but they're also not in your conference anymore. So that's it's a little hard. If they were still in the conference and you say look, don't push us to the side. Houston's number 1 in the country, and I know they are currently. I get that, but they're leaving. They're leaving in months. So that's not the same American Athletic Conference in August as it is right now. It's probably the best timing that he could to come out the way that he did. But, I mean, we're also not stupid. We see the headlines, and you can't tell me that Cincinnati and Houston and UCF and all that's the same as the schools that you're bringing in. And, there's just no difference there. But I know that wasn't his overall point. His point was about the gap, and he's right on that. And maybe more people start calling it the P2 or whatever they want to go down. But, overall, I don't blame him. He was just doing his job. But I think that, people are obviously going to kind of see that in eye roll as well, and that's understandable.
Well, and again, Houston is a part of it, just like Texas and Oklahoma right now are a part.
But you're talking about the future.
Of the Big 12. But if you're looking into the future, Mike Oresco and what he did and what he's saying, I mean, he's not doing no different than what Brett Yormark's trying to do or what Kliavkoff's trying to do or what Warren, while he's on the clock, is trying to do or has done, and then also Greg Sankey. All right, when we come back, just around the corner, we're going to break it down with Rocco Miller from the Field of 68 with what has the last 2 days meant to the Big 12 teams. Can Texas get as high? Can they go higher than 2? Can they? That means that they would then beat TCU and also maybe Kansas or Iowa State. Can Baylor get anywhere below a 2? Can they go to a 3? What Kansas State, are they a 3? Are they a 4? All of that, we'll get to that and more. And this is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco. As things are heating up on the basketball courts, so are the deals during the Ram Truck Month at Alan Samuels in Waco. Get a new 2022 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab with values of up to $8,250 plus $500 to first responders, or get 1.9% for 72 months. Pick from the best selection of the brand new inventory in Central Texas. If they don't have exactly what you want at Alan Samuels, they will help try to build what you get by like a custom vehicle if that's what you want to. And again, it's Ram Truck Month at Alan Samuels. Also, the Jeep celebration event going on at the dealership. Mountain of bonus money for you. Here's one of them. The Jeep celebration event includes 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo, total values $5,500 on second and third row options, and the 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport, up to $5,000 in total values, and that's right. If they don't have exactly what you want, they will try to help custom build something, not like right there, piece by piece, but find what you need. Alan Samuels, Ted Teague, the general manager, AJ, a sales client manager, and they have a great staff across the board. Service department's elite. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Skylar Thompson, Chase Daniel, some more. I mean, the chat room. Thank you all for bringing up some others. Skylar Thompson played a lot this year.
Yeah.
Miami, right? So Travis, H45 Gaming. Thompson honestly looked good when he was in. Not an all-star, but looked good. I agree with you. I do. All right, now, we mentioned the trade Carolina getting the number one pick. I did kind of touched a little bit on Dak Prescott and Zach Martin. they free up $30 million in cap. But, Paul, they're like $7 million over. They're going to have to pay Tony Pollard. He's not going to end up getting
now
that
they're
10
23 under with this. I just checked over the cap, but yeah.
Okay. They were $7 million over the cap.
Yeah.
They have to – that's 23. They're going to have to pay Tony Pollard.
Yep. So that's 10.
And I don't think they're going to end up paying him 10.
Well,
I think
actually,
he'll end up with a new deal, right?
Yeah. But also I think they're probably about to clear off about $11 million more with Zeke Elliott.
So they're going to go crazy when that free agency signing period starts because that's what the Cowboys don't do.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Now, look, they might sign Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, that might happen. But I would actually think that their big move would maybe be trading for a receiver like Stephon Diggs or DeAndre Hopkins. Particularly DeAndre Hopkins is interesting because you probably get him for less than a first-round pick. But
really? Because of his injuries?
Yeah, I mean, compared to like Stephon Diggs, that's going to cost you that pick that's right in front of Buffalo's at least. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that they're probably not going to make a big move when it comes to that. But because they built through the draft, that's what they try to do. But I do think that the next move is Zeke. I think that, if you're already franchising Tony Pollard, say that he has to play on the franchise, they don't sign him to a long-term deal, and he plays under the $10.1 million franchise tag. You're not going to tie up $21 million. Actually, it's more, but I think $27 million worth of cap space in that when you could save 11 of that and let Zeke go because he's essentially your goal line running back now.
Yeah, I just don't see Jerry letting him walk away.
I mean, he's done it with a lot of guys.
I know. That's my opinion. I just don't see Jerry did it with DeMarco Murray right in his prime, right?
Yeah, but DeMarco Murray was a free agent, though. Like, he wasn't under contract.
DeMarcus Ware?
And the other thing about, DeMarcus Ware was one that maybe this more comparable situation because they did have to release him for that to go down. What I think that's different about this one is that Jerry went so far out on a limb when Zeke was down in Cabo or Cancun or wherever he was working out and holding out a camp that he thought he had another Emmitt Smith situation on his hands. And while bringing Zeke back was ultimately good in the short term, now they're stuck with having to make this decision on him. And he's been, after the suspension's been over, since he came back from that suspension, he's been nothing but a model and fantastic teammate and a great guy in that locker room. He's Dak's best friend. There's so much going on there that, it's going to be hard to do, but he's done it before. He'll do it again.
If you allow Emmitt Smith to leave, then you don't have a problem with letting Zeke leave. Emmitt was at the very end of his rope, and then, of course, who was it, Woodson or Roy Williams that ended his career? What was it? Was it Roy?
Roy, yeah, it was Roy, yeah.
Roy. I can't remember. Yeah, I would have think Roy Williams on that. All right, so there is that. Now, I want to go back to the story from earlier today. We were discussing quite a bit again about as we sit there and wait for the realignment news, which could take yet another week or two or so, how long it might take as well. If in fact, that UCLA and USC are no longer on the table, they're gone, they're going to the Big Ten. If in fact you had a draft among the Pac-12 that you would want based on fit, money, eyeballs, and programs, would it be Washington and Oregon 1 and 2, or would it be Washington 1? Who would be 2 if it wasn't Oregon?
I mean, I'd need to have some numbers in front of me because it's not a decision you would just make, and I don't have those all memorized to know the difference between Arizona and Utah and the difference between Colorado and Arizona State. I mean, we might be splitting hairs, and if that case, if all is equal, then I think Utah would be pulling up the rear, although they're probably the best brand football-wise. Outside of the top two, which would be the easiest answer, which is Oregon and Washington, I think that's undoubtedly. But those are the ones that you've not been connected to in any way, shape, or form, and that have no reason to do anything. So if you're those schools, you can just sit back and let this all play out, and you're either going to be the kings of your own conference or – in a few years, you could be joining, some more similarly financed and, sized schools, but those aren't on the table in any way. I don't think anything's happening. Yeah, I mean, I guess if in this game, then I'd go those two for sure. But as far as realistically, which is how realistic is that even?
Yep.
I don't know. I'd need to see like some numbers in front of me. I know what I'd do like based off social media. Like it would be different than probably what the money says as far as my favorites would go. But I think Arizona basketball, even if the football brand's not great, that is just a fun thing to think about, matching up with Baylor and Kansas and Texas Tech and, Iowa State and all these other schools that bring big basketball no matter who's leaving or who's coming in.
Arizona fans and Arizona, Kansas, obviously bringing in University of Houston where they are the number one
Houston,
ranked.
I forgot.
But I mean, bringing in Arizona to a conference. Yes, Oklahoma was not as good this year, but they have been good over the, for the most part. Texas obviously could be a Sweet 16, Elite Eight, Final Four. But bringing in Arizona into a conference, if you were able to do that, that is also bringing in Houston. And again, that would be maybe another year or two. And where it is already with who you have coming back, Arizona, Kansas alone would be fantastic to watch those two go at it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think, you bringing in, the second best basketball history in the Pac-12 behind UCLA, which is the best basketball history in basketball. But behind UCLA to the conference would just be a boon, especially if you added Gonzaga in that mix at some point too. Then you're going to have, Baylor, Kansas, Gonzaga, Arizona, Kansas State. I mean, like a ton of schools that love basketball, like Iowa State, Kansas State. Yeah, it's going to be absolutely out of this world.
It would be unbelievable. And, of course, again, we're just talking and just looking at the possibilities. And if the Pac-12 stays together with the 10 that are there, fantastic. If they end up adding a couple, fantastic. If there ends up being something where there's a door open and somebody says, hey, we need to at least discuss something different, that's fine too. Whatever happens, happens as we continue to go. One quick note, I didn't bring this up when we had the NFL segment. Anyone ever seen the NFL films of Hank Stram and the Chiefs when they upset the mighty Minnesota Vikings? It was back-to-back. It was Super Bowl IV. Packers won the first two. They were, without question, better than everybody. The second-best team in the NFL during those 2 years were the Cowboys, who they beat in the championship. But then you had the Joe Namath and the Jets stunning the Colts, the mighty Baltimore Colts. The next year, Kansas City upset Minnesota, and one of the plays in that Super Bowl that was a big highlight was Otis Taylor catching a pass from Len Dawson and then spinning away from a tackle and then scoring on a 46-yard catch and run. He passed away at the age of 80 earlier on Thursday. So Otis Taylor was one of my favorite players when I was a young kid. He and Charlie Taylor, no relation, who played for Washington, the Redskins at the time, and he and Otis Taylor were my two favorite wide receivers. He passed away today at the age of 80. Those were some good Chiefs teams. Here you are now. They're winning with different – they went forever. They won Super Bowl IV, and you didn't hear from them forever.
Yeah.
Until the Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid combination has put them in the Super Bowl 3 times, winning 2 of them.
Well, now they're a dynasty. Funny story about my dad. The 98 Super Bowl, Elway Falcons. That one?
Yep.
Yeah. He went to that and sat next to Garo Yepremian and Hank Stram.
Did he really?
Yes. He thought Hank Stram – well, he thought they were both hilarious, Garo especially, but Stram was essentially coaching the game for the Falcons the whole time. He said couldn't believe it. Of course, I guess maybe because he's the Chiefs guy, didn't like the Broncos very much, but yeah, he said that was wild. I've got a picture of it. I need to find it somewhere of him at, like this with those two guys.
Oh, that'd be unbelievable to be able to watch that as well. All right, when we come back, what has occurred this week, including today, in men's basketball? How has it affected the seed lines in the NCAA tournament with Selection Sunday coming up on Sunday? We'll hear from Rocco Miller, the Field of 68 bracket analyst. He's next on 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace today at 4 o'clock. Whoever was able to order the 30-pound sacks of live crawfish, pick them up today at 4 or at least until they close tonight at 6 or when they're open tomorrow at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. 30-pound sacks of live crawfish can be ordered every week at Waco Custom Marketplace, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday until they close. Then you can pick it up, the live bags of crawfish, whether it's 1 or 2 or how many bags you order, at $3. I think the last time I looked was $3.75 or $3.50 a pound. Remember, a couple of weeks ago, it was like $4.50 or $4.25. And a full-service butcher shop and full-service bakery. They have tubs of brisket, if you want to start to look at that any time of the year, but as you start to get into the spring and also the summer. They have live lobster tail. They have poultry, they have beef, and of course they have pork and seafood. Norwegian salmon fillets are phenomenal. Waco Custom Marketplace, the Bauer family, at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
It's Ram Truck Month at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get a new 2022 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab with values up to $8,250 or get 1.9% for 72 months plus $500 to first responders.
This is the soundtrack of life at Baylor.
There's a spark in your heart and a fire that's in your eyes.
If you're ready to take a big step toward a bright future, tap the banner below to check out the music video for a glimpse of life at Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T as board-certified physician consultations will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today, just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway. Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs. Knowing you, that's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
College hoops bracketologist, analyst, Rocco Miller with the field of 68. When I talked to Rob Douster by text earlier, I said, hey, can I get a hold of Rocco? Then I looked in the men's basketball directory and found it. Said, hey, he's great at what he does. Rocco Miller joins us on 365 Sports. Rocco, thanks for your time. I know you just got finished doing an hour plus with the field of 68.com. So I would like to go over the Big 12 teams initially. Craig and Paul with me as well. Can Baylor stay on the number 2 line? And if yes, what do they need to happen tonight?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And thanks for having me on, gentlemen. Baylor right now, they're in an interesting spot, obviously finishing with those 2 losses to Iowa State. It really comes down to a couple of factors that maybe most fans are not thinking about, which are, A, how far along is the committee in their process right now? If this would have been a year ago, it might be a situation where Baylor just stays on the 2, might not be enough reason to move them. Obviously the late losses should be factored in, and I would agree with that too. But in some of these cases, if there's not enough overwhelming evidence to move them down to a 3, they probably will just stay there. I would agree that Baylor is probably the lowest of the 2 seeds between them, UCLA, Texas, and Arizona today. But there's a team in the 3 seed area, actually 2 teams that are pretty hot, both Gonzaga and Marquette, that would love to move up if they can. And, it really just depends on where they're at with their process. Last year we had several examples of teams during championship week that should have either moved down or up. I think pretty unanimously, and the committee just kind of left them where they were. So if you're a Baylor fan, which I know you guys are, that's what I'd be hoping for.
Rocco, how much, and this is just me kind of randomly saying this, if you look at, they lost to Marquette, they beat Gonzaga, so like that, right. Is kind of strange for them when you mention those 2 teams, but Baylor has 10 losses. 5 of them are to 2 teams, Kansas State and Iowa State. So how much does that factor into the committee's decision?
Yeah, I think that's really important. All of that information, every game on their schedule, all the scores of their games this year are right there in front of us. I'm looking at the same team sheet that the committee can see and all the different rankings that are associated with that. I think maybe with Gonzaga trying to pass them right now, that win over them could be something that is somewhat of a tiebreaker. It just really depends on, how close they think that comparison is. I think those losses that you mentioned with both Kansas State and Iowa State don't really help Baylor's case because both those teams are right now below the Bears. So I think, from that standpoint, you would hope that they're kind of just looking at the whole body of work. The road win at TCU is very strong. I think obviously some really great home wins with Kansas and Texas, and then beating UCLA out in Vegas has obviously aged very well, with UCLA being probably the 5th best team right now. So, some of those reasons, and the fact that Baylor was already up here on February 18th, we all know that from the bracket preview show that they had. And they started at the number 7 overall position. It's just going to be really hard to move Baylor down that far. But yeah, it's possible they could move down to like the top of the 3 seed line, but I think that's really all it comes down to.
Rocco, what are you eyeing as far as the Texas Longhorns and Rodney Terry go?
Yeah, they're right there. They're playing great ball, and I think they're probably 6th overall. That's where I have them, just below UCLA. They have very different resumes. Anybody in the Big 12 has just a crazy amount of data because every single game is almost a quad 1, or it is a quad 1. But Texas obviously has gone 12-8 in those games. I start and stop with road games. So they got road wins at Kansas State and at West Virginia. They also won at Oklahoma State, a team that's right on the cut line today. But all of those are very difficult buildings to win in, and they got those. And that goes along with a great home resume where they beat Gonzaga, they beat Creighton, they beat Kansas, and they beat Baylor. So on top of Iowa State and TCU, they have an amazing home record in that new arena. So Texas is right there. You would think if Purdue lost, they might be able to pass them. But again, the committee process is is well underway. It started Wednesday morning. We're talking here on a Friday. I just think Texas is probably set on a 2 seed no matter what they play for this weekend. I know that's a little frustrating, but I think that's just the reality.
Yeah, and right now, would you say that Kansas, UCLA, you mentioned them, Baylor had beaten them earlier this year, Houston, and is it Alabama or is it Purdue? Who are the number 1 seeds in your opinion?
Yeah, so just to bring everybody back to a few weeks ago when the committee came on CBS and they announced it was in that order on that day. It was Alabama 1, it was Houston 2, which was a kind of a surprise for a lot of people, and then Kansas was actually 4th with Purdue 3. We found out a little bit later after that show that they finished up doing their work earlier in the week, which at the time Purdue had lost on that Thursday. So I think everybody feels good putting Kansas at least 3rd in the order now and Purdue 4th. And then all Alabama has lost since that day as the number 1 overall team was the final game of the year at Texas A&M. Alabama just won today pretty convincingly against Mississippi State. So I'm personally leaving Alabama as the top overall team. I just don't think there's enough evidence to remove them. But Houston's very interesting because they have not lost. They, of course, play in a league where they don't get many opportunities. But if the reason they had Houston higher than Kansas in the beginning was because of the strength of all their power numbers and their perfect record away from home, Houston has not lost away from home at all this year. Then maybe it's enough to put Houston as number 1 overall. But I think that leaves Kansas stuck in the 3rd position, which I know could be very frustrating if you look at just the quantity of all their quad 1 wins. It's just where I think this committee, and my job is to really guess what they're going to do and be as close to the pin as I can get. I think the committee is going to leave Kansas in that 3rd position on the number 1 line.
So that means that they probably don't wind up in Kansas City, right?
Well, that's fascinating because the way it stands today, if my order is correct, Alabama would get Louisville, Houston would get Kansas City, so you would be correct. However, if Houston ends up number 1, it's an interesting part of the process. The number 1 overall team gets to choose where they go. And I've texted with a few people over there at Houston, and it sounds like they're leaning towards going to Vegas if they get that choice. Which would be perfect for everybody because then Kansas could get Kansas City, Alabama could get Louisville, and then you just send Purdue to the east. But the only way that really will happen is if Houston is the number 1 overall team. So that's the only way I can see Kansas getting Kansas City unless there's some late upsets today and the committee actually takes those upsets into account.
Texas, Kansas, Iowa State, Kansas State, Baylor, TCU are 6 that we know are in from the Big 12. Is West Virginia in?
Yes. Yeah, West Virginia's done enough. They did have a lot of losses. We know that. But I think West Virginia, down the stretch, they got the wins they needed, and they're going to get in. And not only are they going to get in, they're actually going to be seated much higher than the bubble teams just because when you look at all their performance metrics, which are, the 3 that are on the team sheet, just so the fans are aware, the Sagarin rating, the KenPom rating, and the BPI by ESPN are all listed. They tend to really look at that for seeding purposes, and that's going to help West Virginia, I think, get all the way up into an 8-9 game, not like a 10 or an 11 seed. And most of us on Field of 68, we agree that West Virginia should be a 9 seed today. So I think they're in good shape.
Who do you think is the scariest, maybe like below 4 seed team?
The scariest. I like that question. I think the way Texas A&M has played, I know they're probably a rival of yours from the old days, but the way they steamrolled the SEC since January, part of the reason Texas A&M's only showing up as a 7 seed today is because they had some bad losses around the holidays and in the early part of the year when they lost to Wofford. And they had a couple other rough losses there, but they've been a different team in league play. They went 15-3 in the SEC. If not for a late loss, they had a chance to win the SEC championship. And they're just a really tough physical team, and they're very confident right now. a team that I got to see live when they played at Florida. I was down there that week. So just really impressed by them. That's one I'll throw out there, especially since they're local. Another team I think that's just tough in general, that might be an 8 or 9 seed is Memphis. Memphis has players that are 20, a lot of their players are 23, 24, or even D'Angelo Williams is 26 years old. It's just an old team that is very physical. A lot of teams are going to have a hard time matching up, I think, with Memphis.
All right, so Rocco, Paul mentioned a team. A&M's obviously hot, beat Alabama Saturday. They're playing tonight. Is there somebody that's good? Tennessee had that great run, and then they had injuries. They were beaten today by Missouri. Do they go about the seeding with how healthy a roster might be? Is that a discussion inside that room?
It most certainly is, yes. So even and I try to pay attention really closely to what each committee cares about, because each year we'll lose 3 or 4 people off of a committee and 3 or 4 new people will join. So it's not the same every year. And certain committees have certainly looked at injuries in a big way. I think the most significant one was years back when Notre Dame was pretty clearly not a tournament team, and they almost put them in the field. They were the first team out just because Bonzie Colson missed a month. So they were evaluating Notre Dame that year as if they were going to have him available, which they would have. So they start to look at teams like that where what's the team that you're bringing to the dance versus what's the team that you had before, and all the reasons behind it. And they even talked about it this year. So on that preview show, 2 of the teams that just missed the top 16 were TCU and Creighton. And of course, TCU had a bad loss to Northwestern State without Mike Miles. They also had another loss or 2 without Mike Miles, and I think they're higher on TCU than maybe their resume suggests. Same thing with Creighton with Kalkbrenner, the big man, missing 6 games or up close to 6 games with mono. They had a 6-game losing streak, and some of those games when he even showed up in the game, he didn't look like himself. They've clearly played much better since. So I think, as it goes to the Tennessee discussion now, them losing to Missouri today, as long as that's factored in, I think they're looking at Tennessee a little bit differently. They're looking at a team that isn't as strong as maybe they were the rest of the year. It's not something that's going to dramatically change Tennessee's destiny, but it could certainly be enough to drop them from a 3 seed to a 4 seed. And that's actually something we just talked a lot about on the show today.
Rocco, do you think that there's a team that nobody's thinking about, like you mentioned A&M, but like a team that nobody's thinking about that could really make a run that people are maybe counting out because of one weakness or something?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the one that I usually lean on is Florida Atlantic. I think it's not because anybody might think they have a weakness, but they come from Conference USA, so maybe a lot of fans and the college basketball community haven't seen them play a lot. But they're an incredibly cohesive team that have stayed. Most of the kids, except for they have one transfer from UConn, Gaffney, who I think a lot of people might remember when he was on UConn. But besides that, the rest of the guys have been on the team at least 3 seasons, and a lot of them it's their 4th season. And they were middle of the pack Conference USA team last year and the year before with some upside, but just couldn't get over the hump. And now these guys are very, very strong. I think it's just the fact that they don't have an NBA per se player. They have a few guys that will play overseas professionally, and they just have such a cohesive unit. Their attitudes are really refreshing because they're just such a team-first team, which is why they just won their 30th game today. They're now 30-3, going to the championship game against UAB tomorrow. But I think it's just a team also that matches up with really kind of any kind of team. Based on the fact that they have 2 great big men that they can rotate, and they have a cluster like 5 or 6 guys that can all play the 1, 2, or 3 position, and they can and they'll throw a lot of different junk defenses at teams as well. And I think that's why they've won so many games this year, because even in their own league, Conference USA, they see a lot of different styles, physical play, zone defenses, etc., and they've passed the test almost every single night. And I'm really anxious to see them in the tournament format, because I think they're going to be a very difficult team to eliminate.
Just a couple of years ago, that not only Baylor won the national title, but we saw McCaslin at North Texas. They made a run. Obviously, Paul Mills and Oral Roberts, and here they are, ran the table unbeaten, won the tournament. We had them on earlier this week. How dangerous can Oral Roberts be?
Oral Roberts is a fantastic team. They had 4 cracks against Q1 teams this year, and unfortunately they fell short all 4 times. But, of course, what they accomplished in Summit League was almost unprecedented, running straight through the league, perfect, 18-0, and then, of course, winning the tournament. They were here. I live in the Bay Area of California, where they played St. Mary's in the opener, so I got to see them up close. That ended up being a pretty good game down the stretch. They lost by 8. I think that for them it's going to be a matchup thing because Oral Roberts loves to run.
Mm-hmm.
They go fast. They go up and down. Very, very fun team to watch. But if they play a team, that's bigger in size and just slows the tempo down and really frustrates them, that'd be interesting to see how they counter that. They were fortunate 2 years ago, to match up with Ohio State in that first round, because I thought that was a team that also liked to run, and Oral Roberts could beat them at that game. They'll need a matchup kind of like that. They might play Miami. A lot of people have Miami as a 5, including myself. Miami loves to run. That game, if it happens, could have 200 points without even going to overtime. So really, it's for them, it's all about the matchup.
All right, we have a question in the chat room for you, if you don't mind. And you kind of alluded to the number one, how the number one seeds would be ranked. But if Alabama, do you think Alabama could ever get to the overall number one seed? And Apache King asking, if in fact that happens, would Kansas still get to the Midwest Regional in Kansas City?
Well, again, I don't think that order has changed since February 18th with the actual committee, where Alabama was number one then. So I think they go to Louisville, and then Houston was ahead of Kansas that day, and Houston has not lost. So then if Kansas passes Houston on Sunday, that will just mean the committee was impressed enough with Kansas wins since that day over Houston's wins, but Kansas has also lost. They lost at Texas, as you guys know, last week. So I think that's enough for me to not want to move Kansas away from where they were back in February. And so I would say if everything holds the way I have it, Kansas is either going to go to the East or the West. I think they're 100 miles closer to New York than they are to Las Vegas by the way the crow flies, but Kansas fans might prefer Vegas. So it'd be interesting to see where they put them, based if that is the scenario.
All right, well, last thing. So Kansas, the number one seed, no matter what, this weekend.
Yes.
Texas, a number 2 seed, pretty much no matter what, this weekend. Baylor, a 2 seed, but they need to watch what Marquette or Gonzaga do this weekend, correct? Gonzaga's already won their tournament.
Yeah, Gonzaga's won. They're in the clubhouse, and Marquette's playing tonight. They have a big game with UConn. And again, I don't even know if it's going to make a difference or not, because the committee work is probably 80% done already. And I get it. That's really unfortunate, because these games should mean more. But if things hold, I think if you're Baylor, you just root for the committee to be done and be ready to take that last number 2 seed. But certainly a team like Gonzaga or Marquette could pass them still, or if they haven't passed them already.
Yeah, and Marquette, of course, beat the hell out of Baylor earlier this year. Kansas State lost to TCU last night. Jerome Tang's been one of the great stories. We know him from his time at Baylor, but what he's done at K-State. Are they a 3 or a 4?
Yeah, I think they're pretty solidly a 3. In fact, at the start of this week, they were the strongest of the 3s, so right behind Baylor at number 9 overall.
Okay.
Yesterday's loss kind of opened the door for Gonzaga to clearly move above them, and then probably Marquette as well. But beyond that, I think Kansas State's not slide any further than that, because Tennessee's still below them. And out of all the 4s, I think it's just too risky to predict that any of those have done enough to pass Kansas State. There's really nothing wrong with losing to TCU on a neutral court. So I think the Wildcats can go ahead and plan on being a 3 seed.
All right, so Texas, Kansas, Baylor, West Virginia, Iowa State, Kansas State, TCU all in. Oklahoma State, as you know, Rocco, lost to Texas. They're right there. They're wobbling. They're like Humpty Dumpty on that fence. Is there any chance they may fall into the tournament?
They certainly could. That's going to be a committee decision they'll have to make. I would be surprised if they get in, just from the standpoint of right now. So if you look at the Oklahoma State body of work, They missed out on all of their chances against the top of the Big 12. So if you look at the top 4 teams you just listed, Texas, Baylor, obviously Kansas and Kansas State, they went 0-8 in those 8 chances. And I think that really hurts them just because they have 15 losses. There's only been a couple 15-loss teams in history to make the tournament. The last time it happened was Colin Sexton at Alabama. I think it was 2019. The big difference there is Alabama that year had beaten number 1 seeds, I think 2 of them. And that really helped the committee get over the fact that they lost 15 games. The other problem with Oklahoma State is they're only 18-15. It's very hard to get in when you're only 3 games over 500. You feel a little bit safer if they would have got to 4 over, especially if they could have won yesterday against Texas. That would have given them a great win over Texas finally and get to that guarantee of 4 games over. But right now they're just sitting in a position where, they played 16 games against teams that are going to be in the tournament, and they only won 4 of those, which is 25% of the time they win. That just doesn't feel like a team that belongs. On top of that, they lost to UCF, Virginia Tech, and Southern Illinois. Those are 3 schools that are not going to be in the tournament either. I just think that the bad outweighs the good. But I do think it's really close. I think Oklahoma State's my first or second team out. It's just one of those things where they can't select them based on that criteria.
Rocco, great stuff. That's why we have you on, and what the Field of 68 does, the website, the podcast that you guys have. And Rob said you were going to be great, and there's no doubt about it. A lot of people in the chat room appreciate your feedback, man. We appreciate you very much. Good luck. Will you sleep between now and Sunday afternoon?
I think I finally will this year because, like I said, I don't think there's going to be a ton of movement. Most years I stress out, but I'm too much of a veteran now. I'm not going to do that to myself. And I appreciate you guys having me on. Happy to join you anytime.
Hey, Rocco, great stuff. Rocco Miller, the Field of 68 with us, and a lot of information trying to figure it out. So Oklahoma State doesn't look good. West Virginia in, 7 teams in, and now the question is, where will they end up? KU, 1 seed, KU, Texas a 2 seed, Baylor a 2 or 3 seed, Kansas State a 3 seed, and then everyone else, TCU and Iowa State, and then West Virginia will fill it out. Maybe a 5 seed or whatever. One couple of them get to that point. And then West Virginia, it will most likely be a double-digit seed. So there we go. There we go. All right, thank you very much to Rocco Miller for his time with us on 365 Sports. There's the discussion. That a good way to kind of close this out, and then Paul's top 5. What non-favorite team moment broke your heart the most when it comes to sports? The discussion is about Phi Slama Jam in 1983, Olajuwon, Drexler, Young, all that, Reed Geddes, Guy V. Lewis. They lost to Jim Valvano in NC State, a last-second shot. It broke my heart. And I've never been like a big Houston. I always liked Houston, nothing against him. But that is a moment that broke my heart because I loved Olajuwon. Always did. Still do. Did you guys have a favorite moment, not favorite moment, but a moment of a team you didn't like, that you weren't like their favorite, that wasn't your favorite team, they lost, but it bothered you?
I'm trying. When Ohio State lost to Florida, or UCLA lost to Florida. So it wasn't about a favorite; it was about the enemy. Like, look, there are 2 athletes in my life that no matter how mature I get, I will irrationally dislike them. One of them is
you
Tim
have to get mature first.
Yeah. No matter how whatever maturity level I hit, it's maxed out because I can't get to 100 because of this.
Tebow.
One of them is Tebow. And the other one is Joakim Noah. And it might be Joakim Noah and then Tebow. Like, that's how much I don't like Joakim Noah. But when I had to watch Joakim Noah.
That rhymes, by the way.
Win 2 championships, the second one really stung. The first one, the second one really, really stung. Nobody else on that team bothered me that much, but Joakim Noah really bothered me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see Butler win one of those basketball titles a few years back. I thought that would have been pretty cool. They lost back-to-back national titles. Just to have the little guy, be on the mountaintop, having taken down a big brand and won a national title. I know it's not the same as in football, where that's a much more difficult thing to do, and TCU's probably as close as we'll get to that in probably forever from here on out. But in basketball, yeah, you had an opportunity for a Butler to jump up and win a national championship, and they lost to UConn and Duke in back-to-back years. So I don't know. That's kind of I don't really have like a go-to, but I guess that would be one for me.
That's interesting you say that, because Phi Slamma Jamma was the favorite. They were unbeaten. They had this incredible team. They were rolling through people, and they were fantastic. And here comes Jimmy V in his moment that eventually became such a name. And you wonder, his story would have been the same. Unfortunately, he lost the battle of cancer. But winning the national title when he did, and running around kind of like looking for someone to hug, and beating this 800-pound amazing gorilla basketball team that was fantastic, you wonder if his popularity would have been quite the same.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think so, because it was about personality with Jimmy V too, and he and Dickie V together, kind of that was what built that up. But that one I was too young. That was something when I was like 7, 8 years old and started to watch basketball. Sure. They showed a lot, so I knew it happened. But there's a good chance that I was already in bed when it happened before. Yeah, and so that one doesn't resonate with me. I like the Duke Kentucky Final Four moment. The Christian Laettner moment didn't sting to me. I mean, I was 12. I just remember thinking how cool it was, but I have no affection for either side. I mean, I do. I mean, as an ACC grad, I have affection towards Duke for sure. That's not good.
Juan M., I was wondering if somebody was going to bring this up because of the polarizing ability of what Texas is as a program. When Texas beat USC, Juan said, on the Vince Young greatness, like the greatest, perhaps, performance in one of the greatest games of all time. When Texas beat USC, and the play that I remember the most in that game is not Vince dancing into the end zone, because who was going to get him, was the 4th and 1 when Reggie Bush was on the sideline and Lendell White was stopped short. Was it Michael Huff? Yeah. Somebody who stuffed him short.
Reggie's stupid-ass lateral.
Yeah. Early in the game. Yeah.
No, that was a momentum shift in a major way from what I remember. Here you are driving down the field. Here he has a big run, and then tries to make too much of a big play, and then it's like, all right, well, that flipped right back. But, yeah, the 4th and 1 was also a very questionable call.
Because if you can't win it with Vince Young, would Mac have won? I know 2009, we hear about that with Alabama, but you wonder what would have happened if they had lost that game. Oh, they were still knocking on the door, no different than Oklahoma did for 20 years.
I mean, maybe Vince comes back, but I still don't think so. And because I was in the era where Texas didn't lose guys early all that often, and but I remember that the moment that sticks out to me in that game was Vince Young throwing Brian Cushing away like he was nothing. And then if you look back on it now, knowing what happened to Brian Cushing, where he got in trouble for steroids, that's the moment that he became Latimer from the program, where it's like, oh, I just got punked by Vince Young. It's like he got in his car and went right to the bodybuilder gym. Is like, listen, I need some juice. I need it right now.
Anyone have a needle?
Yeah.
C. Jenkins 313. I couldn't stand at that moment. My knees were so weak. Big Texas fan.
Roger Dodger says Young's knee was down. I don't
think so.
What I know was down was Brian Cushing's face in the grass.
Big Jack 512. That 2005 game is the only game I ever wanted Texas to win as a Houston fan. Craig?
I know that Reggie Bush thing happened the very beginning of the game, but I'm telling you, that sucked all the momentum out of that USC drive, and then Texas was off to the races, and then it became obviously a big back and forth. And there was don't get me wrong, there was a lot of other pivotal plays, the 4th and 1, and the debate over who should have gotten the ball and all that. I understand there's a lot of different ways that Pete Carroll could have gone calling that game, but it was just so unnecessary. At the same time, if it connected, then they probably win by 28, because that would have been just like a lateral touchdown drive, like the very opening drive. That would have been crazy. But
that's probably what made it a one-score game. Ultimately, like when you look at the butterfly effect of the decision, like that went from a game that USC could have won, not had to go down to the end and not given Vince that chance, to that's what made it, because it could have, like you said, Craig, broken Texas's spirit in that moment. Although, like,
that was pretty early. Texas was down 12 with 6 minutes left, and they didn't break their spirit.
And we've all talked to guys though. Like, we know several guys on that team pretty well. One of whom, Quan Cosby, and I think the overwhelming view from that Texas team was they were just so pissed that all the coverage was about USC and like everything was.
You mean like Baylor men's basketball against Gonzaga?
Yeah, it was just like they had this they knew it, but like it still bothers you when you walk into a place and they asked Vince Young, like, man, how good is Reggie Bush? Like, oh, the guy that beat me in the Heisman Trophy? Like, he's really good.
Texas was up 9 in the second quarter, down 12, 6+ to go. Won the game 41-38. Unbelievable drama in that game. And you always wonder about if one result, how it would have affected history. Or would it have affected history other than the moment that we discussed?
I mean, you can do that anytime you want. I mean, you look at TCU against Georgia. What if they win that game? How different is TCU's future versus, not winning that game and not winning it, especially in the fashion that they didn't win it in? You know what I mean? Because it wasn't just like, oh, that's TCU. That was like every non-blue blood school being represented in that game, And that just almost, I feel like, in some ways reinforced the feeling of like the gap that there is, just sort of like the opportunity for and they're not like the little guy or anything, but in comparison to a Michigan or Ohio State, they are. And so it was kind of like Butler. There's an opportunity for somebody who normally never would win. I know TCU has one way back in the day, but modern era. I know Texas fans still what if over the Alabama national championship game if Colt doesn't get hurt, For me, if Nelson Cruz just learns how to catch a fly ball, then the Rangers win a World Series. But instead, he just, I guess, was already thinking about celebration in his head and wasn't paying enough attention. Although some people still blame Neftali Feliz for giving up a fly ball that should have been caught. Yeah. I don't know how, like I remember we used to fight with Zach Burke over this, who he produced for us way back in the day. His argument over whose fault it really was the Rangers lost that World Series, and he wanted to blame Neftali Feliz because Neftali Feliz was in relief. Mind you, the same guy who threw a pitch that was a fly ball, that was a standard routine fly ball that would have won the World Series. It's not his fault that the guy didn't catch it and then that all hell broke loose after that, because who would not have been shaken after that moment? Clearly they were, and they turned around and couldn't win another game.
And then they got drilled the next day.
There's a lot of those. I mean, there's every fan base has like probably 5-10 examples of, what ifs if this one thing went differently.
Thanks to the chat room, the feedback from you on just that topic alone. To Masta, Brian Pincushion. It's good.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Man, I don't know if they're still out there, but some of those pictures, I remember there was one picture of him in the USC weight room when he was just jacked to the gills, like Brian Bosworth jacked to the gills. And it was just so obvious. It was so obvious, and we all knew it too. And the picture's like burned in my brain. I'm sure it's still out there somewhere, but he's like doing the whole Hulk pose, and it's just like, come on, man. Like, this is...
When he got caught, his agent said he has overtrained athlete syndrome.
Yeah.
And I was like...
Yeah. That's happened to me a lot.
I was like, that's not a...
I can find that
no one's ever accused me of that.
Yeah. Like, that's like, when a dude gets caught, like... I don't know. I lost my train of thought there, but yeah, overtrained athlete syndrome. I get like when the guys claim they're sex addicts, like, I'm a sex addict, and I've over attractive syndrome. Like, no, you just.
There's so much great feedback from you just on this game alone and the moment alone, and appreciate all of you for that. All right, when you done?
I mean, I've got it, but I can't send it. So, yeah, but I definitely found the picture. Just typed in Brian Cushing flex, and eventually it came up of him in his gray USC T-shirt flex, and his arms are like this big. It's very pro wrestler looking. But, yeah, I would say that was probably at the height of his powers, if you will.
And Ram, FTW, we mentioned and discussed this earlier, but last chat, what an incredible NFL trade for the Bears.
Yeah.
Good for picking up DJ Moore plus all of what else they got, the collateral for giving up the number 1 pick to move the number 9. When we come back, Paul Catalina's top 5, and this is 365 Sports.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Salsa drap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jeweler, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:45. Or is it 5:55? Either way, it's the Top 5.
I've done some Cowboys content on the Top 5 in quite a while, so I thought we'd do that. So Top 5 players the Cowboys should consider at 26. I asked Mickey yesterday what he thought, and he wasn't quite down the road there yet, which is fine. And look, the draft initially to me now has just officially started with the Bears making that move with the Panthers and the Panthers having the number 1 overall pick. I've seen a lot of people say that the Panthers could very much go for Anthony Richardson, number 1 overall after that combine, but I guess we'll see. I think that would be a mistake. He might wind up being a fantastic player, but like I said the other day, I think he needs a little more time in the marinator before he's ready to go on the grill. But number 5, if he falls there, and depending on how this goes after the combine and all that, his pro day, Nolan Smith, edge rusher from Georgia. This dude can play. He can boogie. He's a Georgia Bulldog. And while edge rusher is probably not their number 1 overall position to pick in the draft when you think about, look, DeMarcus Lawrence is getting older. Yes, they drafted Sam Williams last year, but if you have Sam Williams, Nolan Smith, and Micah Parsons all in the same D here in the next coming years, that is players that can get after the quarterback, and that's what's important going forward. And in Dan Quinn's defense, that would be fun to watch.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Number 4, Deonte Banks, cornerback from Maryland. This is the one I actually think is maybe the absolute most likely to happen. Ran a great 40 at the combine in the 4.3s. He's the height that Dan Quinn likes. You pair him over there. He and Deron Bland and, of course, Trayvon Diggs make a nice young trio of cornerbacks, and Dan Quinn can get what he wants size-wise and production-wise out of the other cornerback position. Cowboy fans like to bag on Anthony Brown a lot, but Anthony Brown is a very solid player. You can't have the days anymore where you have Deion Sanders, the best cornerback in the league, Kevin Smith, who was a first-round draft pick, and Pup was a really underrated, underappreciated player, I think, on those 90s teams. Plus, they had, Brock Marion and Darren Woodson back there, and the MVP was Larry Brown to the Super Bowl. Like, you don't really get that anymore. Like, that doesn't happen. But this could be as close to that as they could possibly get if Deonte Banks falls to them there at 26. Look, Pro Football Focus has him as their 18th ranked player for what it's worth. So if he's anywhere near that on the Cowboys board at 26, you go and grab him because it's maybe the best player on the board and a position of almost dire need for the Cowboys.
I like big corners.
Yeah, and he's fast.
Yeah.
Too. He can go.
Always have.
Yeah. Number 3, I couldn't decide here.
Unless it was Darryl Green.
I could not decide here, but if any one of these 3 tight ends is there, Michael Mayer, Dalton Kincaid, or Darnell Washington, they should consider taking them. Mayer is more of the Rob Gronkowski type. Dalton Kincaid is, I would call him more of a George Kittle.
I would agree. Yeah.
And Darnell Washington is something different. I don't know what to call him. He's 6'7", can really, really run with his long stride. His big hands.
And was the second best tight end on that team.
Exactly. So if it's any one of those 3 guys, I think that changes the offense. And really, you're talking about an offense, Smokey. You and I talk all the time. They are lethal between the 20s.
Oh, God.
Just lethal.
I've never, and I don't have the facts, the data, but I've never seen a team have more 10-plus yard plays, and yet something always, God, they 12, 11, 13, and then all of a sudden, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's always the penalties that set them back, and they can't overcome the penalties.
Yeah. And we're getting maybe less likely as we move on. I think.
Who is Darnell Washington? Who is that as
I'm trying to think. I mean, he's 6'7" and big and tall.
How big was Kellen Winslow? Yeah. The Papa.
I don't know.
I don't think he was that big. Yeah,
maybe not. I don't know. He's just.
Yeah. Okay.
He's that dude. Maybe like Darren Waller. Who's been plagued by injuries lately. Number 2, Jackson Smith-Njigba. Obviously played by injuries last year, which probably makes this the only way he falls to 26. Also, though, a guy who's plagued by injuries in his last college season that gets drafted by the Cowboys is in their wheelhouse. They love that. Jalen Smith, Bruce Carter. I can probably name 4 or 5 of the guys if I really had it in front of me who they got because they were injured. But Jackson Smith-Njigba is the best route runner in this draft. He's probably played at a higher level than maybe anybody at his best than maybe even Jordan Addison. But I do, like, if he was completely healthy all year, I think it would be Jackson Smith-Njigba, Addison, and Quentin Johnston, wide receivers 1, 2, 3 in that order.
think Johnston's ahead of the thing about Addison. I've done more this year about the draft. Is that no one's very big. Now Quentin Johnston is.
Yeah.
All the other guys are about this. Addison. I don't know what the height is for Smith-Njigba. Just the Rose Bowl game 2 years ago is why he, to me, what he did when they lost. Garrett Wilson. Who left? Who walked? Was it Wilson or Olave? But he had that game.
Walked.
Well, they
didn't play in that game.
He didn't play with Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson. That game against Utah in the Rose Bowl was one of the most single-handed, greatest individual wide receiver games I've ever seen.
Yep.
Well, and was Olave out too?
I think so.
Yeah, I think they were both out. Yeah, because we were at the Sugar Bowl watching that because we were waiting for Baylor to kick off against. I guess that was Ole Miss, right?
Yeah.
And I think they were both out in that game, if I'm remembering correctly. Because otherwise, how would he have had all those stats? But from Rockwall, great player. I know some people complain or don't complain. I guess some of the propaganda out there in the draft is about not having like super elite speed, but I don't know. He seems pretty solid player to me, pretty much top to bottom.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they said among Chris Olave, first-round draft pick, Garrett Wilson, first-round draft pick, and him, every coach and everybody would tell you he's the best route runner of the three, and it wasn't close.
He's 6'1". At least that's what he's listed on.
Also has a Cowboys tattoo, by the way. Jackson Smith at Jigba does. So we'll see if that's
like the Baylor tattoo on what Cam Martin had?
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see.
By the way, in that Rose Bowl in Utah, lost their second. I guess that was the first Rose Bowl, and then lost the second one as well. And Jigba had 15 for 347 and 3. Then some dude named Marvin Harrison Jr., who was like the fourth receiver, had 71 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Just crazy.
In a crazy game.
Yep. And number 1, Bijan Robinson. There was a time where there's no way that a guy as talented as Bijan Robinson gets to 26, but the way that the NFL values running backs, man, I just don't see the Cowboys being able to pass him up. As a matter of fact, Bijan Robinson gives them leverage at a position that they haven't had in quite a while. They hit on Tony Pollard, clearly, but he's going to be injured coming, in the offseason, coming into camp, coming off that injury. And if you can get somebody like that, and you don't even have to really push signing Pollard to a long-term deal if Bijan's there and he's as good as advertised, which I think he is. So Bijan would be my number 1 player that they should consider at 26 if they fall to him. But there's a lot of people.
If he's there.
If he's there. Yeah. And
How high do you think he might go?
I think 10.
12, 10, 15, something like that?
The Eagles draft at 10, and, I think that they could be a team that says, what do we need? We're at 10. Yeah. That Miles Sanders is leaving. The other 2 guys, Gainwell, they're more like change of pace guys. Bijan fits exactly, especially what they do there in Philly really well.
Those are some players, man. They're all ballers.
I would think that would be one at 10 that he could go to. I don't see him getting any higher than that, but I don't see him going lower than 26.
How about if the Bears take him at 9?
They have Khalil Herbert coming back, so they have so many other needs. But
they do.
Great day for Bears fans, though.
Yeah. They get it all. The DJ Moore pick up the 9th pick overall, plus all the others. 61st pick, and then a 2024 first, 2025 second, I think is what you said. So, Paul, thank you very much.
You're Carolina, and you miss on that pick.
No, you can't.
How much
can't now. You can't because you gave up so much collateral. You cannot. You better hit on that one, or it sets you back. Even worse. Today in Kansas City, this from Kevin Flaherty. He covers Baylor and the Big 12. There's Brett Yormark in the house with Fat Joe as they got all the entertainment going on this weekend. There he is with his ripped jeans, and then Yormark with that tie and suit that we see him in that pretty much that same color. Also, Olin Buchanan just put up, and we go with this, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, the new football scheduling format, perhaps 9 games, with 3 permanent opponents likely will be announced at the SEC spring meetings in May, but could be announced even sooner.
Good, finally.
There you go.
Yeah, that'll be good to see and get all that finalized. I know that there's been a lot of for months on end now. You talk about like the things that you talk about, and that's been something that I've certainly seen pop up time and time again, in conversations. So be good to see who everybody's got solidified and where to go from there. And, that'll be fun. Looking forward to that.
Kansas and Iowa State tipping off here. In fact, they just did. And then, of course, Texas and TCU a little bit later on. Is this the time change weekend? Somebody just put that up in the chat room. I wasn't sure if that's the case or not. If you're in Arizona, you don't have to worry about it. Garrett Ross, great stuff today. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, thanks you, all of you. Text line, chat room. It is, in fact, someone said, yes, C. Jenkins 313. It's the weekend to change your clocks. I'm David Smoak. Thank you to all of our amazing sponsors. We will know who's in the tournament on Monday when we come back with you. We'll have full throttle of that. Baylor women playing tonight at 7:30 in Kansas City. Good night. Have a great weekend. This is 365 Sports.